Back in the 90s, we were children watching cartoon shows.
Damn right we were.
Yay.
Hey friends, welcome back to So to Speak. I'm Evan Mead, and this is Lyle Groniger.
I'm Lyle. I can introduce myself.
Okay, I'll let you do that from now on this time.
I'm a big boy.
Yes, you are. So anyways, we have a really special show today, and today we're going to take you back to the past, but we're going to talk about shows that kicked ass.
We have a guest today. His name is Cody.
Hi, how are you?
Hi. So Cody McDonald is a wonderful 90s connoisseur and filmmaker that we've got the pleasure of talking about this very nostalgic subject with you today. And I gotta be honest, I've got that Saturday morning cartoon feeling, even though the concept of Saturday morning cartoons at this point was...
It's still relevant, because I do it today.
Oh, no, sure, no, to each his own. But to me, like, I did the Saturday morning cartoon ritual as a 90s kid once in a while. I was primarily, like, after-school cartoons, and the vast majority of these shows were, like, after-school stuff that I watched.
Yeah. So,
yeah, and we've got this really cool lineup today. We apologize if, like, the show that the show that highlighted your whole childhood doesn't get talked about today, but there's just too much to cover, and we just want to talk about three of our personal favorites. We've got 9 that we'd like to revisit today. So without further ado, Cody, what show do you want to talk about first?
Well, I mean, when you guys wanted me to get on this show and talk about, 90s cartoon shows, it was sort of like a giant world in my brain just kind of opened up and was sort of like, okay, which ones do I choose from? Do I choose the ones that, were sort of like impactful to me at the time? Which ones did I watch the most? Like, which ones do I still remember today, or what's, relevant to talk about? So I mainly just stuck to the ones that I personally just loved watching as a kid, and even just upon revisiting them, like within like kind of recently, like even within the past few years, like I still get something out of it, or I have a better appreciation for them now than I did back then, because like when you grow up you have different perspectives. So I decided to go with a few that kind of had like not only just like a sense of humor about it, but just like it felt like that the creators were trying to tell us something too while we were watching it. It wasn't just, hey kids, sit down, distract yourself for a half an hour, and then be on with your life. It's like they introduced something in there where it was like, here's something about the world that you live in.
Yeah. And
hopefully this message sticks with you or something like that. So
okay.
The first show I want to talk about is, it's obviously, I mean, we'd kind of be fools if we didn't bring this show up of 90s cartoons, but Rugrats.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good old Rugrats.
I was not a fan of potty or like gross out humor, and Rugrats was like the you guys were,
of course,
you brats. But I was never a fan of that. So based on the gross out humor because I used to go to friends' houses who were like diehard Nickelodeon fans and Fox Kids fans. Although so if ever I would see a commercial for Rugrats, I would just like go ew. Not that the show is in any way bad. I mean, I can understand its appeal, but that's why we're letting Cody talk about it.
Well, wait, did it play on Fox Kids?
No, Fox Kids was just, it never really got that deal. Fox Kids was mainly like anime stuff. Like I used to
like Toonami and that sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was a very 90s thing.
Yeah, Digimon also ran on Fox Kids for many years.
Okay, it's funny because
Pokemon.
I never grew up with Fox Kids. I don't even think did we have it here?
Yeah, we did. I remember Fox Kids.
What
and
channel was
Kids.
it on?
It would have been in the 40s, like depending on your cable package. Because I grew up with basic cable, so I only watched Fox Kids at the friend's house. I stayed with after school for the majority of 3rd grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because my cable package was YTV, Teletoon, and Family Channel, and then occasionally the kind of lower ones that I looked at were like TVO Kids, Treehouse, and WB Kids kind of thing.
I had YTV. I think I had Teletoon for a time, but then my parents got rid of it. And the only thing I could have was like Teletoon Retro, which was like all the old shit.
Yeah. Well, I think today's like Shaw Direct satellites have just strictly that Teletoon Retro, which is like all the kind of older stuff.
Yeah, the classic cartoons. Yeah, some good, some bad.
But that kind of leads me into like just YTV was my introduction to Rugrats.
Oh yeah,
because they had that.
We didn't. If we were in the States, I'm sure our main networks would have been like Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, and Disney. But we had Family Channel, Teletoon, and YTV as like more of the alternative.
Yeah, just for the record, to all you Yankees listening into this show, if like we ever talk, like Fox Kids obviously was an American thing, but YTV and Teletoon were like the Canadian go-tos for all the shows that you guys watch. We got to, and there was also some Canadian content as well, like Yvonne of the Yukon was very popular. Being Ian by the same creators was very popular on YTV.
That was developed by the same people.
I think it was because there was a Canada Day special where they played nothing but back-to-back Yvonne of the Yukon and Being Ian episodes for the whole day.
Oh.
Being
Yeah.
We really got sidetracked.
Yeah.
Cody, what do you want to say about Rugrats?
Rugrats is a show that, like, when I was a kid, I'd always just remember, like, trying to race home after school to be on time for this little segment on YTV called The Zone.
Yes.
Hosted by Sean and Sugar,
and Carlos.
Carlos as well, yeah. Or was it Sean? Or maybe. Oh no, sorry, it was Carlos. Yeah, sorry,
Carlos.
Not Sean. Yeah,
Carlos and Sugar.
Carlos and Sugar, and it was basically just like 2 hours of cartoons that featured, like I can't remember exactly the right order. It was like Pokemon, Hey Arnold, and stuff like that was in there, but there was something about Rugrats that was so... Because basically the premise of the show, if people out there are living under a rock, or you're Generation Z and you have no idea what Rugrats is...
Oh, that's also true.
Rugrats is a show in the 90s that, at the time, Steven Spielberg called it the Peanuts of that generation. Fun fact. And it's a show that is about babies being babies.
You mean it's a baby show?
Yeah.
Are we too old to be talking about baby shows?
The nostalgia principle applies, but go on.
We'll hear him a lot throughout this podcast. Yeah. It's a show about babies being babies, and they talk amongst each other. They have like their own kind of broken English sometimes. They say words a little bit differently than we would say it. But the premise of the show is that they go on these little misadventures and they just kind of learn something about the world, or they look at it from a different perspective. But that's kind of where the show's charm came from, is that it was looking at the viewpoint from such an innocent, humble, naive kind of perspective, like point of view almost. Mm-hmm. So the show starred Tommy Pickles, who was the main baby, the brave one, the one that would...
The adventurous one.
The adventurous one.
The rebellious one.
The rebellious one. Like a baby's got to do what a baby's got to do. That was his catchphrase. His best friend was Chucky.
Chucky Finster.
Chucky Finster, who also looked exactly like Chucky the doll, which I thought was distracting.
And he acted just like Garth from Wayne's World. Oh, God.
And he was like the Frady cat, the kind of contrast to Tommy.
Yeah.
And then there's the twins, Phil and Lil, who are so disgusting.
Oh, yeah, they eat bugs.
They eat bugs, they eat worms, they do all a bunch of gross stuff, but there's one thing that does hold up from the show, is that pretty much everyone today has the exact same haircut as them.
Yeah.
Like kind of shaved around the side and like kind of brushed, like slicked backwards. Like, that's a very common haircut today that I've noticed.
Yeah. Well, I've yet to see anyone with Chucky's hair, but...
Oh, yeah.
Who knows?
And then the sort of, I would say, not villain, but antagonist of the show was Tommy's cousin, Angelica. Who
nobody fucking liked.
Nobody likes Angelica. I loved her. Just, like, she stood out as, like... Because you would always, like... in real life you would be like, oh my god, I know somebody like that, or I have a sibling who's like that, or like somebody who's a little bit more older, because she's a little bit more older than the baby. She's 3, and like the babies are just still
she has like this
1
ability to talk to both the adults and the babies.
Exactly.
Somehow.
So she's sort of like she's sort of like that middle ground between like the point of view of the parents and the babies. And then going into the parents, there's Stu and Dee Dee.
Oh my god, Stu
And Dee Dee are Tommy's parents, who like Stu's an inventor and he fails at almost everything that he makes, but he's just so driven and passionate. That's why you love him. You want him to succeed.
I don't know about passionate. My favorite clip from Rugrats is when he's like up at 2 a.m. He's like, Stu, what are you doing?
Making chocolate pudding.
It's 3:00 in the morning. Why on earth are you making chocolate pudding?
Because I've lost control of my life.
God damn it, Stu.
I love it. But basically, but I can't leave out this character because he is the best adult character in the show, Grandpa Pickles.
Hey, Sprouts.
Now, Grandpa, I wanted to ask you guys, did you ever notice that every time Grandpa would tell a story or just say anything, he would always include the number 15?
15 miles. We walked 15 miles to our school every day.
Any story that he ever said included the number 15. That after a while you're like, all right, I don't even know if he's just making shit up.
Yeah. Well, it reminded me a lot of like Grandpa from The Simpsons.
Oh yeah.
And speaking of which, like both those shows, The Simpsons and Rugrats, were produced by like the same animation company. This is a hard name. Say Chuspi Claspo?
Not Gracie Films, but that's a distributor.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like the first few seasons of The Simpsons were animated by the same team that did Rugrats.
Yeah.
That's why it was so jarring sometimes.
Yeah. That's insane.
Yeah.
The 90s were a busy time for that studio.
And don't worry, guys. We'll talk about The Simpsons another time.
Oh, it is a 90s show, even though it's...
Right now, we're working on children's shows.
Yeah.
So we'll get there when we get there.
Simpsons is going to be like a 3-hour podcast between all of us, just quoting everything.
Yeah. Well, the 10 seasons especially.
But to go into the show, like Rugrats, like I said, it's just like little adventures about babies being babies, like discovering like what the world is about. Like I don't have any particular like favorite episodes, but like when I would just talk about Rugrats, like a few little premises would just kind of come to mind. Like I really love the episode where they were at the movie theater.
Oh yeah.
And they just completely, like, destroy everything by the end. Like, they're just discovering what it's like to be just outside their comfort zone and, like, getting it in the projector room and destroying the film reels and, like, getting messy in the concession stands and all that. Like, I kind of just love that.
I love Grandpa's reaction to the movie. He's just having a horrible time. He's like, I'm gonna go get some candy. Rather rot my teeth than rot my brain.
They're seeing, like, a kid show, and Grandpa was just like, we should have gone bowling instead. Like, he's just completely miserable the whole
he's
time.
Angry.
Yeah, like, that's what I mean. Like, as an adult, you watch it, and you're just like, at least there's something that, like, adults can get out of, because I think that's what the creators, looking back, were trying to do, is that they knew that kids would watch this, and perhaps adults would tune in, like, their parents would tune in. So it's like, hey, why not add a little bit of something for the adults while they watch? And then you grow up, and you're like, hey, I appreciate this a little bit more, because, like, there's some elements in there that kind of hold up here and there, you know?
Yeah, I do like how the babies are like the focus, but like the supporting characters are equally strong.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
But that's kind of a principle that applies to the shows I want to bring up too.
Yeah, me too.
It's that I guess 90s had like a really strong principle for writing shows for kids. Like if you're gonna have the kids be kids, you have to have the adults be adults.
Yeah.
Sometimes like Nickelodeon will have a show that came after Rugrats where like the parents are either like non-existent at all or they're just kind of there. Fairly Odd Parents, not to digress, but Fairly Odd Parents had this issue with the parents where like I don't know, they were
there.
They were there, but
they just didn't have an impact.
They were kind of funny too. I like the dad a lot.
Yeah, though the dad.
Jimmy.
That's great.
But you know, it became so popular in the 90s, and you know, it spanned like 9 seasons, but like looking back now, kind of in retrospect, like it got so popular that like of course, you know, like it you know, it spawned a movie. Like
That's another. We have just sorry to interrupt, but we actually have some questions that you answered a question of ours before we were able to ask it.
So sorry we didn't set this up earlier, but we have like 4 before as we wrap up each show. We have 4 like questions we want to ask about each 90s show. So the first question is this show still running?
No, it spanned from like what was it, 1991, I believe.
I think
so
91.
Like 2004. I think
it was
like
still
the
running,
last aired episode.
When I was a kid, it was still running. Yeah,
but it like they took breaks in between because I think they were also developing like the spin-off show that came off later. Like
we'll get to that. So the second question is, was the show ever adapted into a movie?
Yeah, so it actually was adapted into 2.5. I would say 2.5 films. So when it became so popular, like the network Nickelodeon was just like, it was like the highest like viewed show at the time. It was so popular between the 3 like early renaissance of Nickelodeon, which were Doug, Ren and Stimpy, and Rugrats. Rugrats was like just flew to the moon. Like it was like everyone was talking about it. Like parents loved watching it with their kids. Like it was actually, it grew such a popularity that like Paramount was like, hey, you guys should produce a movie, Nickelodeon. Like, so they got the Rugrats movie in 1998, and the Rugrats movie it's cute.
Yeah,
like that's what I'll say. But it's kind of bizarre the fact that it's a bit like a musical. That's kind of looking back on it, but what I do appreciate about it, and this is what every single movie that is based on a TV show should do, is that if you're going to make a movie based on it, the stakes need to be higher than the show ever was.
Yeah.
Like just to bring up an example, the Simpsons movie. Like a giant dome. Like like the stakes are high. The South Park movie. Like the stakes were so high in that movie, higher than anything in the show.
Saddam Hussein will take over the world.
Exactly.
If Terrence and Phillip die.
But
we'll get to South Park someday too.
And for sure, yeah. And the stakes in the Rugrats movie where the babies are lost in the woods.
Yeah.
And in this movie, we were introduced to a new baby, Dill.
Oh, yeah. Dill Pickles.
Dill Pickles, Tommy's little brother, and this, to me, is what broke the back of Rugrats to me. Because it was a bit confusing, the fact that, like, Bill, I was going to say Bill.
Billy Pickles.
Billy Pickles. Dill can't talk. He's like a newborn. He's saying things that we view babies as just saying a bunch of gibberish and all that, and that was a bit like, huh? Like backtracking almost.
Right.
And I always felt so odd to me, even as a kid. I just couldn't put my finger on it.
Maybe he's in a higher mode of intelligence that we'll never discover.
We're getting in like baby genius.
We're getting into
territory.
baby genius.
Oh god. We don't want to get there. You guys already kind of briefly talked about that.
Yeah. Once was enough.
Once was enough.
But what I did like about what the show did is that the episode right before the movie premiered in like the fall of '98 is that like it was setting it up. Like Dee Dee was already pregnant, and then you had to go out to see the film to kind of almost see the continuation of that.
Oh, that's neat.
And then like a month after the movie came out, like the show continued later on, and Dill was in the show, which I thought was really cool.
I actually like the second movie a little bit more.
Me too, and I wanted to get to that.
The second movie was
Me too.
Rugrats in Paris.
Rugrats in Paris is a far better film. They kind of, what I really love about it is that they take an aspect of the show that was considered to be one of the most heartfelt episodes of the show, the Mother's Day episode with Chucky.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my god, I'm having a flashback here. I actually may have watched the Mother's Day episode. I just remember there was an amusement park and the main character in the episode gets lost. That's the Mother's Day episode, right?
No, this was like the one where like everyone wanted to give something for Mother's Day and Chucky didn't have a mom. Like his mom died at like such a young age, but like,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's probably another episode you're thinking of. I can't even think of that one.
Yeah, no, then this isn't Rugrats. I just thought it was, sorry. But
okay.
I will say, I had a best friend in the year Rugrats in Paris came out. Like, my best friend at the time...
2001, I believe?
2001,
yeah.
My best friend, Josh, at the time, who, to be fair, I'm still friends with him today. I should probably clarify. Like, sometimes I'll say, oh, my best friend at the time. He and I are still, like, tight today. But
anyway.
So he was obsessed with this show. He had the soundtrack, and that's actually... how I was introduced to that earworm from 2000. Who let the dogs out?
Oh, yeah.
That's, and you know what's interesting is that song got played in the trailers and in many soundtracks for many family films that had something to do with dogs.
Yes.
That song has nothing to do with dogs, people. We'll have to talk about that on like a musical show or whatever, but I just remember, Rugrats in Paris, it was big, it was everywhere. That came out the same spring that Shrek came out too, so I just remember that was something that the kids were talking about.
Yeah.
But
yeah, the stakes were so high in that movie too, and just the emotional part of it as well. Like and I don't know, there's something about the color palette of both the show and the movies that I just really love. It just feels kind of like kids really kind of not saturating, but really brightening up the colors a bit.
It's
like,
a colorful show.
It's very paint almost. Like, I don't know, there's something about it that really just kind of like resonates this kind of like aesthetic even as an adult. You know, you can kind of look back going, wow, even just like the composition of the show had like this sort of like kid-like feel. Everything was at a low angle, everything was at like a tight close-up, because that's kind of how you saw the world back then as a kid.
That's
like,
what I liked about that show, Rugrats, is like in the perspective of the kids, everything seems so grand and new, and they oftentimes their imaginations would get ahead of themselves, and they would make something that's kind of like mundane to us seem like totally epic. Yeah. Like in the second movie, they see a bidet. It's like, wow, a potty that squirts back.
Or even just the opening of the first
episode,
movie. They're doing like an Indiana Jones kind of parody when it's just them in their house playing around.
Yeah. Oh god. And the second movie opens with Angelica pretending to be the Godfather.
Oh, that was hilarious. That's clearly Paramount trying to like plug in their own properties, like Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Godfather. I'm like, I see what you're doing there.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I see what you're doing.
Wow.
I love how that movie ends too with like a gigantic, like almost like what the hell is the word? Like a giant kaiju fight between two massive robots.
Pacific Rim before Pacific Rim was Pacific Rim.
Yeah.
And that's a Paramount property, or would be a Paramount property too.
The Rugrats predicted the future. And speaking about this half movie that existed.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rugrats Go Wild.
I did not see until years later. So it's basically, Rugrats Go Wild is a crossover movie between Rugrats and the Wild Thornberrys, which is another Nickelodeon show that was about a girl who can talk to animals.
Eliza can only talk to animals.
I'd never watched the Wild Thornberrys, but I watched the Wild Thornberrys movie, which I thought was pretty decent.
I saw the movie too.
Yeah, it was pretty decent. But then I had to, because I wanted to watch Rugrats Go Wild, but then I didn't know if they were going to do all these jokes and in-jokes things, so I wanted to get to know the Thornberrys before watching Rugrats Go Wild. So it was funny, watching Rugrats Go Wild, like just a few years ago or something like that for the very first time. It was like nostalgic for me just to see the Rugrats. But then the second, like, the Thornberrys came in, it just kind of became, okay, I get it. You guys were probably, like, the most popular Nickelodeon things at the time, despite SpongeBob kind of being
I was
the
going to
most
say,
popular.
I think SpongeBob was way more fucking popular than the Wild Thornberrys.
It was, like, their last-ditch effort to, like, try to make these other shows, like, kind of relevant, and I get it, but it kind of was like, okay, did this have to be a theatrical release?
Was it theatrical? Or
It was theatrical.
Oh, yeah, it also had,
Bruce Willis did the voice of Spike.
Oh, God.
Yeah, and they had, like, scratch and sniff cards that came with the movie. I remember that was in the DVD. It's like, then you could scratch and sniff a diaper, and it's like, I don't want to fucking do that.
Jeez, that's like what Nintendo Power did with those.
Yeah, with those, like, Earthbound, like, posters.
Yeah.
Here's a quick question. Did you guys go to Burger King at the time when the Rugrats movie came out years ago and you got those wristwatches?
Yeah, I remember the wristwatches. And
I never liked Burger King.
You could build a treehouse or something out of the toys you got. Yeah. I remember that fondly. I think I either had the Reptar one or the dill pickle one. I was like, no, I want the Chucky one.
Yeah.
But yeah, Bruce Willis is Spike the dog.
Because they had to give him a voice because Eliza Thornberry can talk to animals.
And it's clever.
Yeah.
It's kind of clever. So it was just so bizarre casting.
I saw the interview with Bruce Willis. Like, it's like, how did you get into the character of Spike the dog? And Bruce Willis is like, Spike.
Fell asleep.
Spike is just a fun-loving, canines. Like, he looks like he was less.
That sounds like today's Bruce Willis, where he's like,
yeah,
Oh, this
it was
is
the
when-
beginning of the end of Bruce Willis's ability to give a fuck.
Bruce. This is when the apathetic Bruce Willis like really started to show. Like in the early 2000s, he just stopped giving a shit.
He was more alive in The Sixth Sense than he was in that interview.
Oh god.
We have 2 more questions.
Yeah.
Now that we've finished talking about the movies, should it be revived? Now there was a show like after Rugrats called All Grown Up.
So technically, it was revived.
It was revived once, or it was just a spin-off.
Rugrats, it'd be exciting to see it revived, to see how it would connect with kids today, like young kids today. I mean, it's the same thing, like if you ask, like, can Scooby-Doo... Like, Scooby-Doo has been around.
Scooby-Doo is pretty good at reviving itself.
But, like, I don't know if there's something so of its time, that simplicity of the 90s, of, like, you know, babies being babies kind of show. Of, like, I just don't know if, like, would babies today, like, if they'd have like an adults, or oh my god, sorry, I can't talk. If they had a Rugrats show today, would like the babies be on like tablets and you know, just stuff like that? Would they not see the world that we saw today? Because I'm not sure
like
how it's like
parenting and all that. It would be...
I think it might have a shot as like, I mean, if it was all new babies actually. If it was, because you can't really bring back those characters.
Oh god, what if you had brought back those characters, but they're the adults who had the babies?
Oh my god.
The cycle repeats itself.
That's not a bad idea. Like, I think, yeah, like if you bring back that same feel and tone of Rugrats, but having it be like newer characters, I think there could be a shot that it could work, but I feel like the show itself like kind of ran its course by the end, and maybe it had something to do also with us growing up a little bit more. Yeah. Like we were like 10 years old by the time that like the show was ending and all that, and it was kind of like, okay, we're a bit older. The kind of,
you had your fun.
Yeah, you kind of grow out of it a bit, and it got too animated and calculated by the last few seasons, where it felt like I don't know if the original creators, I think they left halfway through.
Yeah, they were getting kind of tired.
Yeah, they were getting tired, and they had to have some new blood, and usually the new blood of a show that spans for so long, that you can definitely feel that change. We'll talk about that a little bit more in our subject about a certain sponge. We will definitely talk about that. But all
right, well, yeah, I agree. Like, I think Rugrats has had its fun in the sun. I think we can definitely just let it lie. It's pretty timeless now, so I don't need it to be revived. If they did, I'm too old to watch it anyways.
Exactly.
But sure, maybe modern kids. And the last question is, does this show still hold up?
I think it does to a certain degree, like a little time capsule.
It is very 90s.
It's very 90s. It's very, like, I think, like, even my girlfriend thinks, like, the animation just looks just hideous and bizarre and just sort of pukey looking, which I'm like, I can understand that.
Yeah.
But I think it's a nice time capsule to, like, see what the world was like back then and how they were telling the show. So I would say it holds up if you want to watch, like, a cute and innocent little show. Basically.
Yeah. I was kind of
like, it doesn't. It's not a big thing that holds up entirely, but like it is what it is, you know.
Yeah. I always loved the music by like Mark's.
The guy from Devo.
The lead singer from Devo. And I like all his music sounds like you just put like the fart option on your.
Just the xylophone stuff, and like it's just so perfect, the tone for that show. Yeah, like it really matches the kind of offbeat and kind of like whimsical cuteness of the show. Like it's perfect.
It fit the weirdness perfectly.
Yeah.
All right, well that is Rugrats.
Yeah.
Next up, our friend Evan over here.
Okay, so I gotta be honest. It took me until a little later in life, or a little later in childhood, to get into YTV. I was a TVO kids kid for till about the age of 10, and then once I was 11, I turned to YTV. But one of the shows that I watched may not have been my favorite, but it was one I watched a lot. To talk about the show, we're going to have to take chances, make mistakes, and get messy! You guys knew right about that. Case in point, the Magic School Bus. Now, the Magic School Bus covers a class of 8 kids, which I don't know what the American class standard for elementary school
That's
was.
right, it was 8 kids.
No, well...
And the one kid just wanted to stay home every day.
Oh,
Arnold.
So I'll talk about the kids. So the kids there are Arnold, which we just mentioned.
I love Arnold.
Arnold Perlstein is actually his full name. You rarely ever hear their last names in the show, but Arnold's you've heard a couple times. Carlos Ramon, Dorothy Ann Rourke.
Carlos was the guy with the backwards cap, right?
No, that's Ralphie.
Oh, damn it.
Ralphie Tonelli. And Carlos was the guy who cracked the bad jokes, and the whole class would go, Carlos!
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Oh, God. You're bringing back memories just by making all those jokes. So Dorothy Ann was the girl who would go, according to my research.
Oh,
she just carried a bag of books everywhere she went. Keisha Franklin, she was really, you know, I don't remember too much about her, to be honest.
Yeah, she didn't do a lot.
Phoebe Therese was the very, I guess, orthodox kind of girl where she's like, at my old school, we were never allowed to turn into light.
Stop living in the past. You
Actually,
are in a magical bus.
well, there's actually an episode where they go back to her old school, and her teacher from her old school, you get the creepiest vibe ever. You kind of sense that there's like a bit of a almost romantic connection between Phoebe and her old teacher, Mr. I can't remember his name, but it was the weirdest thing ever. Now when I look back on it, I'm like, wow, like where were you going with this? And then so there's also Tim Jamal, who was kind of the sporty type. He reminds me so much of Vince in Recess.
Oh yeah.
We'll talk about Recess.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so
and then the last one,
the spunkiest one was Wanda Lee. Wanda Lee had several catchphrases.
She always got in trouble.
Wanda had the most attitude out of any of the kids in this show. And
anytime she got in trouble, everyone would just yell, Wanda!
Yeah, and also she would have several catchphrases like, oh bad, oh bad, oh bad, 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 or what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? And then
oh my god, I'm remembering all this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Glad I'm able to and then of course there's the bus. The bus is fucking alive, guys.
The bus is alive.
The bus has feelings too.
The bus literally like can get sick. It cannot cooperate and it can malfunction too.
Wasn't there an iguana?
Yeah, there's a lizard.
Liz, yeah.
Liz is the silent character, but yes, Liz was a she.
Oh,
She's just adorable. And the best for last, their teacher is played by
Lily Tomlin.
The great Lily Tomlin, Miss Frizzle. And Miss Frizzle is the teacher that we all wanted when we were watching this show.
Absolutely.
Like, I had some teachers, and I don't know about you guys or where you guys went to school. I mean, you grew up in Windsor, Cody, right?
Yeah.
So and Lyle, you grew up in Rodney, so
yeah.
The small town education. I grew up in suburbia, so I don't know what your teachers were like.
I don't know. All I know is that sometimes they just roll out the TV and we just watch Magic School Bus for half an hour to fill up time.
Very nice.
I had my grade 3 teacher, Miss Coolin.
Oh, yeah?
Which, by any chance, if you're listening to this, hi. I don't know if you'll remember me.
Yeah.
Class of 2002. She reminded me so much of Miss Frizzle. She was the only teacher that had, like, this sort of energy where... Yeah. It was, like, fun to go to school. She, like, taught you things in a positive way.
Yeah.
And, like, had this enthusiasm and just, like, she always was smiling.
Yeah.
Yeah, my grade 3 teacher was exactly the same.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I love about Miss Frizzle is that, like, she can put the kids in life-threatening situations.
Oh, this would not fly.
I am not kidding around. Life-threatening situations where the kids will be like panicking, and we, the kids who watching the show, are panicking too. But Miss Frizzle will just be cool, calm, and collected, and then she'll just go, "Come on, bus, do your stuff," and then the bus would save them, and then everyone. But this was an educational, while also being very entertaining because you got to learn all the shit in school that wasn't covered in school, because I got heavily into the Magic School Bus when I was just in grade 1, and it took until about 4th grade or 5th grade for them to actually start teaching what was being taught on the Magic School Bus.
Yeah.
Like, they talk about like structures, which I guess I learned in grade 2. Dinosaurs. That pissed me off. We never learned about dinosaurs when I was in elementary school. There was never a unit on dinosaurs because I would have gotten an A+ in that. I had to learn dinosaurs on my own time. So,
there's 2 episodes of that show that I was just remembering now. I remember the one where who was the kid with the cap again?
That's Ralphie.
Ralphie was sick at home, and they all went inside of him. Sounds so wrong.
Okay, do you know what the name of the name of the episode is? Literally called Inside Ralphie.
Inside Ralphie.
Oh god.
They shrunk down, and like I remember
get your minds out of the gutter, audience.
I have a
They went inside of it. I think they realized that they were inside of his nose, and they were all grossed out about that.
Yeah.
I remember that part. And the second episode I remember is there was something involving where they thought like somebody stole like the classroom's pickle or something like that. It was a cucumber.
It was the pickle episode.
Yeah.
It was the episode was called In a Pickle. I'm just gonna look this up now.
Yeah, like it was an episode where like they shrunk down, and it blew my mind as a kid because I didn't even know that like a cucumber can change into a pickle.
Yeah.
It was pretty awesome. Well, that's what I mean, but going back to what you said about educational, you just learn little things.
Yeah.
I have a question.
What's the question?
What the hell do the parental slips for these field trips look like?
Oh god.
They're gonna shrink your kids down. They might get attacked by really small insects.
It's a magical
They'll
show.
go inside one of the students' bodies.
Miss Frizzle has like the biggest insurance.
They'll go to
ever.
fucking go to fucking outer space.
Yeah, and they'll almost die. In the pilot episode is probably the show. The pilot is the show that is the first episode that you think of when you think of the Magic School Bus. It's the episode where they are going to go on a casual field trip to the observatory. The observatory is closed, which you'd think they would have planned in advance for something like that. So Miss Frizzle just says, fuck it, turns the bus into a space shuttle, and they fly to through our solar system. And a reoccurring occasional character on the show is Arnold's evil cousin, Janet.
Oh, Janet.
Is the polar opposite of poor
I forgot
Arnold.
about that, yeah.
And what's really unsettling is she looks like a twin more than a cousin.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
Oh.
So, but she looks like it's basically him, same hair, but she just has same glasses, but she's a woman.
Yeah.
And basically, the show, they go into space, and Janet, in this particular episode, wants proof that she has been on every single planet in our solar system. And then it gets to a point where she's loading up like mineral samples and gas samples from every planet in our solar system. Mm-hmm. And when they get to Pluto, which of course they're going to say Pluto for last, and then later that something that kind of spoiled our childhoods was every group book we read about space said that Pluto was the 9th planet.
Pluto's not a planet.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? It's a moon.
Yeah. I don't know how that came. Well, because apparently the Pluto, the body, the terrestrial body is actually smaller than Earth's moon.
Well,
so,
is it a moon or is it a dwarf planet?
I think that for a while the astronomy community said it was a. I'm gonna have to fact check this, but
I'm pretty sure it's called a dwarf.
They said it was a moon of like Neptune, but then because it's too far outside of Neptune's orbit to be classified as a moon, so they just called it a dwarf planet. They stopped calling it a planet at some point in the early 2000s. Then they called it a moon for a while, and now it's a dwarf planet.
Okay.
So that debate was kind of settled once and for all.
That planet has a real identity crisis going on.
It really does. What the fuck, Pluto?
What the fuck, Pluto?
So, anyways.
On
Pluto,
I have an episode.
On Pluto,
I'll let you wrap up.
Yeah, no. On Pluto, there is an Arnold just gets because it gets to the point where Janet is collecting so many mineral samples from the planets, where Arnold just says, "Janet, if you want proof, I'm going to give you proof. Here's what's going to fucking happen." No swearing. This is a G-rated show, but so it's like South Park wouldn't take up that mantle until a few years later. But anyways, so Arnold's like, "I'm going to tell you what's going to happen, Janet, if you just don't want to go home without your stuff." Arnold takes his space helmet off, his head turns to ice, and you think he's fucking dead, but...
Oh, I remember that image as you said it. I just remember him turning to, like, crystallized ice. I remember that.
It's
Holy
horrifying.
Shit.
And he doesn't die. They go back to Earth like 2 seconds later, and he just has a head cold.
Okay,
my ass!
A cold?
Oh my god.
Taking your helmet off in space.
I remember, and he's still wearing his glasses, and it just turns into like crystallized.
It was horrifying.
Like
that gave
diamond-looking
me it gave
ice.
me nightmares.
Yeah, I remember
Yeah,
that.
that was pretty
Holy
freaky.
shit!
So that was, and Miss Frizzle, by the way, is cool throughout all of this, like almost to the point where it's disturbing.
Yeah, she always has that smile on her face, like it's all right. We'll get through this.
Probably the biggest scare is there's an episode where they literally have to go inside a volcano to create a new island, and they have to put pressure on the rock layer so that it'll erupt, and then it literally gets to a point where Wanda's helmet is cracking and you can see it, and then you're like, she's gonna die if nothing happens. Then Miss Frizzle just does her thing, and then the day is saved. But I honestly, when I grew up, I thought, why wasn't there a Robot Chicken episode dedicated to this show? Like, it could have been, it writes itself.
I think there was.
Well, it could have easily been like, these field trips never happen. Miss Frizzle is high on like 20 different kinds of drugs, and the kids are all high with her.
I saw there is one clip
and then she goes to jail for drug abuse and corrupting small children.
Oh, there is a Magic School Bus thing.
We're gonna have to watch
There's like
that
a
later.
couple of them.
Oh, wow.
Oh my god, the Magic School Bus drives the Fortnite bus.
Oh, God.
Yes.
Seatbelts, everyone!
Please let this be a normal field trip.
Please let this be a normal round.
Wanda thanks Miss Frizzle as the... But wait, what was the episode you remember?
I was gonna get into that. The biggest episode I remember, because I liked it a lot, was when they were in Wanda's house. And I think they accidentally got shrunk down.
Yes.
And they're stuck inside of Wanda's bathroom, and they have to get out of the bathroom. The only way out is the window. But they have so many obstacles to, like, they have to climb onto the toilet. They have to cross the sink. And for some reason, Wanda's mom is studying like alligators or crocodiles or something. And they're living in her tub. They're like baby crocodiles. And
there's one baby crocodile.
Oh, only one? I thought there was like at least three, but I don't know. That was a while ago. And then they build all these simple like mechanisms to help get them across obstacles. Like they take Q-tips and build a bridge out of it. They stack items, and they have to be careful with their resources because they only have so many of each thing. Yeah. And they have to make sure they're stable and safe to cross. Yeah. It was really cool because when I was younger, I really liked building bridges and things like that, and understanding how all that worked.
Yeah. Oh, that was a cool episode.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite episode of Magic School Bus for sure.
Yeah. And now there's I just remembered something. We have to bring it up, but before we get into the questions about the show, is every single episode ended with the producer taking questions.
I love that.
Phone calls. Is this the Magic School Bus? Is this the Magic School Bus? Is this the Magic School Bus?
And there was usually like two. There's a man producer and a woman producer, depending on the episode. But it's like Magic School Bus, the producer speaking, and then the kids would get random callers. I guess they were kids, like. Not kids on the show, but they actually like asked legitimate questions about the science because
just to clarify the episode.
See, I didn't know those were the producers. I thought those were the people who wrote the books.
They were based on books.
They were based on books.
Yeah.
Now, I think, but yeah. So they ask, and by the way, the books would always, if the books ever bend science, which happened all the time.
I mean, it's pretty fantastical.
Yeah. So, the book would clarify, like, why you shouldn't do X, Y, or Z, or why, like, this would never happen. I remember there's an episode where they talk about, stars, and they show one star that goes to supernova, and the producers calmed all of our fears, because if our sun is a star, it can technically blow up or go supernova. There's two ways a star can die. A star either expands to the point where it explodes, or it cools and shrinks, and turns into a black hole.
Yeah.
So our sun is apparently not going to explode, but it will, in a few billion years, run out of gas. But apparently it's not going to happen in our lifetime, but it will happen. So existential crisis averted. We won't have to worry about our existence in this lightning. That's where COVID-19 comes in.
And like that would be the greatest excuse to do your homework.
What's COVID-19? What is this?
Whoa!
Oh no!
10 feet back. 2 meters,
Come
buddy.
closer, my dear.
Alright, so Evan.
That is the greatest existential reason not to do homework. Oh, well, the sun's gonna blow up eventually, so nothing I do matters.
So, if I had to pick before we get into the questions, if I had to pick a favorite episode of this show, I would I would say Wet All Over. That's the episode where they get turned into water, and they learn about the water cycle, but they learn about evaporation, cloud formation, and rain. That, to me, was always... And they get to go, like, to different places as water. I think that was my favorite. I don't know why. Another noteworthy episode, two more noteworthy episodes were when the bus turns into a dinosaur and they go back to 65 million years ago, where in the Cretaceous period, and Arnold grows into a giant. They blow up Arnold like Honey.
They blow up Arnold.
No, they don't. It's like
that
Honey,
is the show.
It's like Honey, I Blew Up the Kid.
I blew up Arnold. He was being
where
annoying.
they grow him to be like 10 feet tall, and he fights off a T-Rex. It's actually really cool.
That's hilarious.
Oh my God.
One thing that I actually called bullshit on when I got older, but it turns out I did some research to prepare for this episode. There's an episode where Arnold turns orange from eating excess carotene, and
that can happen.
It literally can, and you wonder what Donald Trump's diet is like when you look at him, you know. But yeah, no, that was another noteworthy episode.
So is the show? Is the show still running?
The show is not, and by the time I actually was able to understand it and watch it, the show was actually long over because it debuted in 1994 and it ran for 4 seasons until 1997. It is not still running, but however, what's the other question?
Was it adapted into a movie?
No, they never got a movie.
But aren't they reviving it and having what's her name?
Kate McKinnon.
Kate McKinnon.
No, Kate McKinnon is Miss Frizzle's sister in the rebooted show, The Magic School Bus Rides Again, which is not hand-drawn animation. Flash animation controls everything.
Oh, it's live action.
It's
Flash.
It's
animation.
Flash animation.
Oh.
But there have been rumors of a live-action Magic School Bus movie being in the works. I don't know anything about it. Apparently, they want to explore like the kids as high schoolers rather than as elementary school children, which I think would be kind of interesting. I don't know who would play Miss Frizzle. They probably get like a comedian. Hopefully it's not. I love you, Melissa McCarthy, but I hope you don't play Miss Frizzle. Like, can you imagine?
Well, she doesn't look anything like Miss Frizzle.
Yeah, no, but like I feel like they've cast like.
I think she wouldn't be terrible though. Like I could
She
see her
wouldn't be
going like,
terrible.
"Oh, this bus!
Yeah.
Oh, I've been driving for so long, my feet hurt."
But Miss Frizzle is not an angry character. Miss Frizzle is one of the most overly happy characters you'll ever see.
I could see McCarthy doing that.
I guess.
I don't know.
So
they just shouldn't do it.
But one of the things I actually forgot. So keep going with the questions.
Well, I mean, you kind of answered the next one. Like, should it be revived? I guess it already.
It already has been revived.
Because I agree. I think it should. I think comparing that to just what we talked about with Rugrats, I think that Magic School Bus has a little bit more potential at getting revived because
it has some education
is a thing that could always go. Like things change even as time goes by, and there's probably things that like kids are learning today that we weren't taught that like they can bring that to life in a cartoon form. Yeah, like it sounds a little bit more relevant.
If they can revive Bill Nye the Science Guy, they can revive the Magic School Bus.
They gotta put that show on Disney Plus already.
Bill Nye the Science Guy?
Put it on Disney Plus already. I will binge that show in a day.
Does Disney own Bill Nye the Science Guy?
Yeah, it's a Disney show.
Oh, jeez, wow.
Yeah.
And what was the last question?
Does it hold up?
Absolutely, it does.
I would say
because I love the experience, the memories that come back when you just talk about the show and about the characters. One of the things I actually didn't realize was how many guest stars were in this show. Because Lily Tomlin is obviously the voice of Miss Frizzle, but they actually got Dom DeLuise as the baker when they go to the bakery episode. They got
oh my god,
Tony Randall,
Rita Moreno, Eartha Kitt.
What
in the episode where the parents come in and well, it's an episode about bats. I don't really remember that episode, but Eartha Kitt guest starred in it, and Swoozie Kurtz, I'm not sure who that is, but the biggest, Ed Asner was in the Spider episode.
Alright, well, we could go
and
through it
Alex
all day.
Trebek was on the game show episode, obviously, and
Naturally.
then there was the biggest name, I think, in this entire show was Malcolm McDowell, and he was in one of the last episodes.
Wow.
Wow. Wow. What is that?
The episode was called "The Magic School Bus Gets Programmed," and the plot of the episode is Mr. Rule, the principal, gets a new computer, and Miss Frizzle's class has the job of opening the school and set up the computer. Carlos's brother, Mikey, from Getting Energized, oh, that's another episode in the show, is a computer expert. After he sets the computer up to raise the flag, he makes coffee in the teacher's lounge and rings the bell. He goes on his own trip to see the inner workings of the computer. Carlos records his voice with a handheld microphone. As usual, something goes wrong. As usual!
I'm suing this school.
No shit. Along with the replay of his recorded voice, and Mikey has to set the computer to do the tasks every minute instead of every day. Can the class get to Mikey and have him fix the problem?
Spoiler alert, yes.
Yes. So I have... Who did Malcolm McDowell... I don't remember this episode.
I don't remember.
No.
It was one of the last episodes in the show.
And one more thing to point out before we move on to Lyle's first show is let's just briefly talk about the awesome theme song that gets you pumped.
Yes.
Yeah, done by Lil Richard, yeah.
Oh my god.
It...
Might
Honestly,
get baked into a pie!
On the Magic School, step inside this wilder ride.
Run on the Magic School Bus!
Seatbelts, everyone! Please let this be a normal field trip.
What, the frizz?
No
way!
Oh! Cruising out down Main Street.
You're actually feeling good.
Okay.
That song got turned into a really disturbing meme.
Oh, I saw one video where it's like, please let this be another field trip, and it does all that, and he's like, oh, and then it's like there's a footage of a bus getting hit by a train.
Oh, horrible.
Yeah,
horrible.
the internet has a sick sense of humor.
You
it's
don't
great.
say.
You don't.
Okay, so
tell me something I don't know.
what's on your lineup, Lyle?
Okay,
Yes.
well, since we're kind of talking about shows aimed at younger kids, I thought I'd start with this kind of an underrated gem in Canadian animated programming.
Oh wow, you're getting your fill of Canadian content today, ladies. and gentlemen.
Yeah. I think that out of my 3 picks, I think this one is the most Canadian. It's called. Does anyone remember Stickin Around?
Yes.
Yes. Oh god.
Real mature, Bradley.
Stick it. Wait, how does it go?
Stick around. Ba-da-da-ba-ba-ba-dum. Do.
Oh, set up. Okay, you gotta just set up
Okay.
this show.
Okay,
Oh my
so
God.
Stickin Around is basically it's a show I would say is best described as a kids show that looks like it was made by kids. Everything's drawn very crudely, like everyone's a stick figure.
Borderline LSD.
I would love to watch this show high or on LSD.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's so fun to watch. Like it kind of reminds me of like Newgrounds animation with all like the
Oh yeah.
boiling art animation. Like the figures are always moving even if they're standing still.
Yeah.
And I always like this show because it's like these two kids, these two best friends, Stacy and Bradley, and like I don't know, like Stacy's the bossy one, Bradley's the kind of like what's the best way? He's just the jokester.
Yeah.
And like the show, kind of like Rugrats, is pretty like crude at times. Like it has a lot of potty humor. And the one thing I always loved about the show is just like all the wacky shenanigans they get inside their own heads.
That's all I remember. Like I don't remember specific episodes. I just remember like who each and every character was and the stuff that they were doing every episode.
Yeah.
Because there was a bit of like a formula to the show. Like you'd introduce one character and then like the second they start to smell something, like, oh man, what's that funky smell?
And then Dill would show up. Hi, you guys! Holy mackerel!
Holy mackerel! Always yelling as one giant eye and one
He has
little
one
eye.
giant eye.
Like one dot, I would say, is an eye, and one is like a huge egg looking of an eye.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Very
I think we talked about it recently. Like,
Yeah.
there's something kind of like, I don't know if it like holds up entirely, but there's something kind of like, I don't know if it's like making fun of like kids with like kind of mental disabilities.
I never
get
thought that.
vibe. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's making fun of that at the time when we didn't even know that. But
Yeah, I guess because like some people on the spectrum aren't aware of how loud they speak,
I guess.
Yeah.
and they don't have the social cue to like know better to like dial it back a bit.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I never thought Dill had like was on that kind of thing. I just thought he was like an obnoxious person.
I do remember something that happened in one episode where they were trying to get him in the library, and he was just trying so hard not to talk because like you're supposed to be quiet. You're supposed to be quiet in the library, and the second he'll open his mouth, and he's like dying to like open up, and then when it finally opens up, it's like this huge. Holy mackerel! And like it just like echoes and like sound waves goes across the universe. It just it's so loud. I remember that. That's probably the only moment or premise or show like episode I remember. But
I remember.
But the bullies.
Oh yeah,
that's
the bullies.
When they smell something weird, it's because of the shorter guy that always like what were their names? Lance and Russell.
Lance and Russell.
Yeah, Lance would be like, "It's time for a wedgie, Scradley," and then Russell would just go,
no.
"Yeah, wedgie." Like he would always say "yeah" and then repeat the noun that Lance would say.
Yeah. Scradley.
Yeah.
What?
I'm being kind of quiet because I only watched like this show once in an after school program, and I thought it was the trippiest thing ever. And but I remember that. That's the one thing I remember.
I feel like not a lot of people talk about this show. Unfortunately,
isn't there a little girl that has?
Polly. Dog? She has a dead dog that she carries around.
You can see the tire marks in the dog. Like it's clearly roadkill that she's carrying around.
Come on, Pepperoni.
Pepperoni.
We gotta go.
Yeah, this is like I used to watch it so much because it's so off the wall bizarre that it's so amusing.
Fun show. Like,
it's so amusing.
I had so much fun watching it when I was a kid. I was always happy when it was on. Yeah. I also remember one episode. There's a couple episodes I remember because I had a VHS copy. There's one where there's like the Thanksgiving episode, and like Polly's talking to the old man. It's like, "Would you please pass the peas, Mister?" I don't remember the guy's name. Mr. Dodler. He's like, "Well, it beats passing a kidney stone."
Oh yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I remember that. And what was my favorite episode? I think one thing I noticed in this discussion is we don't really remember the overall plot. We just remember the experience in its essence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I do like the recycling episode where they had to do a class project where it's like, guys, if we don't recycle, the Earth's gonna burn up. And Dill's like, the Earth's gonna be toast, you guys.
Oh. And how relevant would that be today?
And so like, and then Stacy and Bradley fly off to a planet. And they just create their own planet. It's like, all right, well, I mean, we can be simple about this. How can we make the planet safe? It's like, I don't know. Let's order a pizza, Bradley. And all this development occurs in a split second, where like the pizza place has to be built, the food has to be farmed, and like all these highways have to be developed to deliver the pizzas. It's like, well, we ruined the planet. Way to go, Bradley.
And then he always say in every episode that running joke where it's like, we're going to a planet called Uranus.
Oh yeah, he was that
every episode.
He's that fucking guy who always thinks Uranus is the funniest thing to say.
Well, it's like that kid from E.T., remember? Hey, Elliot, where'd that creature come from? Uranus, get it? Uranus.
He doesn't get it.
Uranus. And he wouldn't fucking shut up
and
about
Stacy's like catchphrases were like, "For your big fat information."
That was in the theme song.
Yeah. And
for your big fat information.
This is our imagination. Yeah, and then she'd always say, "Real mature Bradley," anytime Bradley was being annoying. Bradley was like always transforming into some guy, and he'd always be like Arnold Schwarzenegger. He'd be like, "Hasta la pizza, baby." I liked Bradley. He was a fun character to bounce off Stacy.
The music was always funny too.
Oh yeah, it was always like weird organ music.
Yeah. And that's a way more colorful and wacky show than Rugrats.
Well, Rugrats is grounded. This is like off the wall, like almost like it's almost a stream of consciousness the way it was concepted. No, I like Sticking Around.
But like, is it still around? Is it still running?
Did it
stick around?
Did it stick around?
It actually had a very short life. It only had 39 episodes. It lasted from 1996 to 98. So
wow, that's short.
It didn't last that long, unfortunately, but I still remember it fondly, so that's all that matters.
Was it so popular that it span a movie?
No, they didn't make a Stickin' Around movie. I mean, it was released on cassette, but that's not a movie.
Should it be revived?
Should.
These are like the quickest answers ever for this show because it's so
It didn't have the biggest run, and it didn't have the biggest following, and it was made on Nelvana. and it was released on YTV. Should it be revived?
Would kids get it today?
I don't think so.
No. But does it hold up?
You know what? I like it. I have fond memories of watching it. It is a little bit loose in terms of plot and characterization. It's not the deepest show in the world, but like I'd happily revisit it.
Like, it holds up for adults if you like weird, like myself.
I do like weird, yeah.
Weird, for lack of a better term, is good.
Yeah.
I really get a very big kick out of weirdness. Weirdness done right needs to be like it is like a separation from reality, and like unexpected humor and just things that like very specific things that make you laugh that like no one else would probably get a kick out of it, but it just tickles you in a certain way because of how off the wall it is.
Yes.
So I'd say I'd recommend it to people like adults that like weird, but for kids, you're going to be just as warped as we are today if you watch this at a young age, because I blame this show for why I have a really twisted, like, I look at things so funny. Like,
yeah, that's like a Ren and Stimpy quote right there. You idiot! Don't you know cartoons will ruin your brain? Or rot your brain. I'm sorry. Ren and Stimpy was before my time. Yeah, that's all all I have to say about Sticking Around, really. Check it out if you like. It's on YouTube.
Yeah.
Alright, Cody, you're next. What's your next show? My
next show, keeping in the theme with Nickelodeon, going back to that, this is a show that, it's kind of going into some of these questions that later on we'll get into, but, like, it's a show that I believe holds up entirely to this day, and it's Hey Arnold.
Yes. That's a great show.
This is a very mature show, looking back on it. It's a show that I've appreciated way more as time has gotten by. But looking back, I always remembered, like, I mean, as kids, like, you watch these shows, and, like, you always just remember getting kind of hyper and excited. And there was something so, like, patient and nice about Hey Arnold, even though that there was some, like, wackiness that happened in it. There's, like, this very mature and very grounded and very, like, reserved kind of tone about it. Because basically the show is about a kid named Arnold who has a football-shaped Stewie-looking head.
Yeah, Stewie Griffin's
and it's about he's an only, well, he's not really he's an only child. He doesn't really know he never met his parents, or actually no, he met his parents, but his parents left him at a young age.
Yeah,
and he left him with his grandfather at this boarding house, and it's basically just a slice of life show about him and his friends getting into certain situations, and he's sort of like the catalyst to like help out people kids get through tough situations, and you'll get like a life lesson out of it. And like there was something that I always like remembered, like I don't know if you guys relate to this, but like I can remember a few times in my life where like I used a lesson from Hey Arnold to kind of apply to like my life, or to like pass that message on to somebody else, kind of thing.
That's nice.
Oh, that's great.
There's something so wonderful about that show, and even just the neighborhood itself has like a character in itself. Like, it's a bit run down. I wouldn't say it's like ghetto looking, but it's like there's a bit of a character to it. It's run down. The more you watch it, you start to go, okay, the boarding house is there. Next door is the flower shop. Next door to that is the meat shop. Like, you actually start to learn like the geography of the neighborhood.
It feels very lived in.
Yeah, very lived in. And every character, what I realized that, because my friend got the whole show for me, the DVD box set for me a few years ago, and that's when I rewatched the whole show in its entirety. So it's pretty relevant in my mind right now, and it amazed me that like every single character, even the minor characters, eventually got an episode or a time to shine.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Which was so wonderful too. Like, they treated everyone like a person in the show.
Yeah.
Even though
that's a common theme of like a lot of the episodes, a lot of the shows we talk about. Like every character is like really well rounded and expanded upon.
Yeah, like it's a slice of life show. Like, one episode that I'll always remember. It's a classic episode for people that watch the show, but like the time where Arnold and his best friend Gerald, who has like Marge Simpson high looking hair, they dress up as fruit.
Oh yeah, was that the pilot?
I think it was the pilot. It was season 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they get lost around in the city, and it was just this horrible, like, just they're trying to get from A to point Z kind of thing, but one thing goes wrong after the other, like.
Yeah, and the reason why they're dressed as fruits is because they have to be in like Helga's freaking like play.
Helga's
Oh,
the girl.
well, here we go.
Oh, we haven't mentioned
I
Helga.
won't go into every character because again, it's a community. It's kind of like
It
The
has a
Simpsons.
pretty big cast.
Yeah, it's a lot. But one character we can't leave out is Helga G. Vataki, who
That's her
I
fucking
always
last name.
yeah, that's her full name. Who I always thought like if Angelica got a little bit older,
she
grew
does
up.
remind me of Angelica.
She would grow. Angelica from Rugrats would grow up to be Angelica from Hey Arnold.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always thought like that was a little bit of a coincidence. Like yeah, but she is sort of like again like Angelica, an antagonist, sort of like that one that's always so rude to Arnold, but she secretly has like an immense crush, love.
That I remember from the show.
Like it's like Gollum sometimes how back and forth she is. Like I hate him and I love him. I hate him and yet I love him.
Yeah.
It's very back and forth. And there's always this running gag of that one kid that just sitting there like he's just mouth
that
breathing.
wheezy motherfucker.
That wheezy like mouth breathing guy that's always just standing there listening to her and then she just punches him in the face.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's hard to. I mean, there's so many episodes I can get into, but like, there's episodes where, like, either it makes me laugh so much or it actually tugs at my heartstrings. So I kind of have to categorize them both.
There's a good balance.
There's a very good balance. Yeah, like the one episode that I always loved was when they make Helga disappear at this magic show. Arnold is like a magician at this talent show. And is like failing horribly, and then he puts Helga inside the box, and then Helga actually like leaves, and she leaves inside of the box that she was in, and then she gets knocked out, but she wakes up, and the whole thing is a dream, obviously, but she lives it. Her dream is that if like she didn't exist, or if no one knows who she is, and it suddenly gets like so dark and surreal the more you go into it. Mm-hmm. But then she gets out of it going like, "Oh, I'm gonna be wonderful to everybody." Like it's.
Oh, it's one of those where the awful person like tries their best to be good.
Another one, I always fucking love this episode because it's so wonderfully exaggerated. And that's kind of the stuff I like in cartoons when like they play it so straight, but then it's so exaggerated to us as adults or viewers. Yes. Is the trash can day episode where there's initiation because Arnold and his friends are in grade 4, and there's an initiation every year where the 5th graders. It's the first Monday of June of every year where the 5th graders just take the 4th graders and stuff them inside of stinky garbage cans.
Oh god!
Ew.
So like, is it like initiation?
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Like the second the bell rings at the end of the day, it's like you have to like go home and stay there because 5th graders will just hunt you down with garbage pails and just stuff you in there.
Yeah, it's like the beginning of Dazed and Confused.
Yeah, and it is like such a funny survival of the fittest episode of everyone just like a few characters getting picked off one by one until there's only Arnold and Gerald left over. But that's a funny categorized episode. But then the heartfelt episodes are like, my god, like the Christmas episodes.
Or like the turtle episode.
Oh my god. Well, actually... Wait, no, sorry, I was thinking of another one, but the Christmas episode with oh my god, what's his name? The one that lived, I'm forgetting his name, I'm blanking on his name, who lives in the boarding house? The Asian guy.
Oh, I don't know him.
You know who I'm talking about, right? He's the single one, he was trying to find his daughter. He got reunited with his daughter.
I remember the European guy.
Oh, Oscar?
Yeah, the guy who couldn't read.
Oh my god, yeah, Oscar.
Oh, I want to pet the pretty
Susie,
kitty.
make me a sandwich. Yeah, Oscar was hilarious. But Mr. It's Mr. something.
I don't recall
for
some reason.
There was like a couple, which was Oscar and Susie. There was that Asian guy that was by himself. And then there was that small-looking, Danny DeVito-looking guy who worked in construction.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why I'm forgetting their names. But anyways.
Yeah, it's been a little while.
But...
Yeah.
The whole heart of the whole show actually is about Arnold slowly trying to figure out what happened to his parents because his parents were like these like travelers around the world, excavators, like just trying to find like treasures and all that. But then one day they went off on a mission and they never came back, right?
Yes.
And Arnold near the end of the show found this journal that like kind of like describes where they were going to be at. And I remember being in my Nana's room watching that final episode-ish of Hey Arnold, or just in terms of the story, because I knew it kind of spanned a little bit after that, but like in terms of the story, it was left off on a cliffhanger. Like Arnold knew finally where his parents were going to be, right?
Oh yeah.
So now this kind of ties into just a few questions you'll later on ask, but like it only spanned about like 5 seasons or something like that. And the creator of the show, Greg Bartlett, was supposed to make that into a movie, the continuation of that storyline of Arnold trying to find his parents. It was supposed to be called Hey Arnold, the Jungle Movie or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But then Nickelodeon made a terrible mistake at the time in 2002, because the Rugrats movies were such box office successes that Nickelodeon was like, we got to crank out a quick thing as quickly as possible.
Oh, yeah.
Hey
So-
Arnold movie.
So what happened is that the Hey Arnold movie that we got in 2002 was supposed to be an episode, just a direct-to-video movie called Arnold Saves the Neighborhood. That was supposed to be just like on Nickelodeon, whatever, just a TV movie kind of special thing.
Okay.
And the length is only like 70 minutes. It's barely a feature length, right?
Mm-hmm.
So instead of doing the Jungle movie, which they should have done, they did this thing, and then it kind of lost the momentum. And I remember watching that as a kid, like, okay, not only is this not like a continuation of the story, but this is also a retelling of an episode of Hey Arnold. That premise of like, you know, someone wants to come in and tear down something that we hold value.
Wow.
Wasn't it the theater? Yeah, I remember an episode.
It was an episode where like they made a treehouse in that vacant lot that they had,
Oh,
and
okay.
Big Bob, Helga's dad, who's like this beeper salesman, wanted to tear that whole lot down and build like his beeper place. I'm like, it's the same premise as that. The movie just kind of took that and made it like a very half-assed kind of version of that, and it had nothing to do with that.
Yeah, I never saw the Hey Arnold movie.
I didn't either.
You don't even need to. If you want to watch the show, just watch that. And then it's funny because it grew such a popularity and a cult following, the show afterwards, that like the creator in 2005 was like, hey everyone, we're coming out with that movie that you've always wanted, the Jungle movie. And I was hyped. I was like, finally some closure, right?
Did it have a theatrical release?
It didn't. It
Damn.
premiered on Nickelodeon, like the network.
Oh, wow.
I actually have it on DVD. You can buy it on
Oh,
Amazon
wow.
for like $10.
Okay.
And it was such a wonderful little movie. Like, it actually made me cry at the end. I don't want to go into spoilers, but it had the perfect closure and ending to that storyline of Arnold and his parents. Something I was waiting for years to see, and it hit me. It was like so good. It paid off so wonderfully.
I think it's hilarious. So the thing that should have been a movie was a TV movie, and the thing that probably could have just been a TV movie was a full like theatrical release.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I only watched a couple episodes of Hey Arnold because the channel it was on. Because I grew up with basic cable. I didn't have the channel that Hey Arnold was on because it was never on YTV that I remember.
Really? No, it was on YTV.
Oh,
that's
then-
how I was. That's how I. The Zone. It was part of the Zone.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah. I guess watched it a couple times. But Arnold's catchphrase was "I'm jinxed," and when I heard that was actually my introduction to the word jinx.
Actually, I think you're thinking of a character named Eugene on the show who's a jinx.
Yeah, Eugene, because
Eugene.
everything shitty always happens to poor Eugene.
Every time he wipes out, you just hear, I'm okay. And they were always afraid of him being like a jinx, like they didn't want him around. Yeah.
What did the word jinx mean? Because I was introduced to it through Hey Arnold.
It just means
Bad luck surrounds you,
you're
or you pass it on to somebody.
You're accident prone and it's
Fair
contagious.
Yeah. It's like a kid thing. Like they think it's contagious. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, there's the Pigeon Man episode. There like classic episodes. There's the Stoop Kid. Kid. There's the one where I keep wanting to say Angelica. Sorry, Helga.
Angelica.
Helga loses her
Locket.
locket.
That's my favorite episode.
And it gets wickedly dark by the end.
Yeah,
Where
like she keeps breaking into Arnold's house to get the fucking thing.
It's so
The
funny.
only reason I really remember that episode is because Oni NG, which is a YouTuber I watch, did a dub with his friends. And it's called like Gay Arnold or something.
Oh god.
It's like those things where you're like in high school and you think swearing's funny and you just like take an old show and you just like dub and swear over it.
I remember we actually had the author of the Elliot Moose books come into our school to talk about them, and after Elliot Moose was like the shit for a couple of weeks after that, and we were watching the show crazy, reading the books, and then one kid came in and said, hey, wouldn't it be funny if it was called Idiot Moose? So yeah, and back when we thought idiot was a swear word.
They're stupid, yeah. So, should we get through? I guess you kind of answered all the questions already. Like, the show's not running. Like, it just had that one episode.
Yeah. They had a movie, but then, like, the real movie came out years later. Mm-hmm. That kind of came from that cult following that came from the show.
And we talked about, there were some movie adaptions.
Yeah.
Okay, well, should Hey Arnold be revived?
I don't think it should. It's kind of like a thing where it is of its time, and it was just nice to see the Jungle movie later on, just as like a nice little late closure to the overall story, and it kind of provided some nostalgia for people that probably grew up with it. But like, I don't think it should be revived. I think that, like, again, I think this is kind of going back to what we're talking about Magic School Bus. If they would, or no, sorry, with Rugrats, is that if they would ever revive any of these shows, try to capture the same tone and just do your own thing. Even not even call it Hey Arnold or Rugrats. You know, kind of just capture that same essence and feeling of those shows, but just do a completely different, like...
I agree.
Just make a new show.
Take note, Hollywood.
Yeah.
And that applies for movies, too. Take note, Hollywood. Stop rebooting everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but then they'll just call it a rip-off.
But absolutely does it hold up.
It does hold up.
It gets heavy in certain places. The comedy is not so over the top. It's not as wacky. It's again very restrained, very, very reserved and patient and mature show. And and here's another thing I'll point out about all the shows that we watched lately is that all these shows were always so nicely diverse.
Yes, you took the words right out of my mouth. And the shows were, Lyle and I are going to talk about it, and I guess you. The shows we're going to continue to talk about have that diversity. Like, there's characters from different ethnicities, different racial backgrounds. Magic School Bus, like, all the kids are from diverse. I think, like, only 2 of the kids are white.
And you learn, too, like, especially through Hey Arnold. Through Hey Arnold, Hey Arnold, you learn, through that show just about different cultures and the way, like, they practice and all that. So it's kind of also, like, educational in that respect, too.
Yeah.
You know, like, and... Also, just to end it off, like, it has a very, very bizarre opening intro, if you really think about it for a second. Like, I don't know, you might remember a little bit more.
I always got, like, a West Side Story vibe from the opening.
West Side Story, yeah, but there's also, like, if you really point it out, it's just, like, the boys would hang out, Angelica's trying, or... Keep saying Helga!
Motherfucker, it's Helga!
Sorry, Helga's trying to get his attention by saying, "Hey, Arnold! Arnold! Just, and then all he does is just let her pass at the end. It's just like, oh, we led to that.
Yeah, but I don't know, it introduces all the gang. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's so many characters I can't even get into it, so.
But I can tell that it holds up because you talk about it, Cody, with such reverence and high esteem.
I want to watch it now. Like,
I have the first season.
So. Oh, cool.
Honestly, like, it's, I don't know, because it's, I just grown so much more of an appreciation with it. As you grow up, you get different perspectives. You start to look back, like not with just the nostalgia goggles, more of just like, the show is really trying to tell us something, and there's like, I'm not annoyed while watching it.
No,
and not that I say I'll be annoyed if I watch like Rugrats or something like that, but I'll go, this is clearly for kids. Mm-hmm. But there's some stuff for adults that just happen to be in Hey Arnold as well. So, yeah. Yeah, that's my show. So.
Okay.
That's my show, and I'm sticking to it.
Cool.
Oh, and let's end it off with like a little thumb thing, the thing that Arnold and Gerald
I don't know if I should touch your hands, but okay. They're not.
Yeah, their handshake.
Just wash them.
Their handshake was like almost a weird thumb war looking thing, but there was always the sound effect of like a.
I don't remember that. That's so weird.
That's adorable.
That happened a lot.
Yeah. Thumb wrestling, a thing that is outlawed in 2020.
Oh God. Well, take note, kids, when you go back to school in a week or so, for depending on where you are geographically. So, the next show I'm going to talk about is a show that I don't think you guys know was solely Canadian. It was a collaboration. It was a co-production between France and Canada, and we've talked about some shows that were original ideas, and some shows are based off books. This show was based off of a video game. Now, in the late 80s and early 90s, it occurred to movie makers and showrunners that video games, mainly Nintendo games and Sega games, were reviving the gaming industry. And several giant Nintendo titles in the late 80s got turned into shows. They weren't great shows, but they were shows nonetheless. There was the Super Mario Brothers Super Show and the god-awful Legend of Zelda show, which I don't want...
Excuse me, princess.
God. I wanted to punch that.
That's the only thing I know is that
That's the only thing I know.
Well, that got turned... And then, of course, there were the Philips CDI games where they had similar animation.
Fucking Christ.
It is written that only Link can...
You killed me. Good.
You must die. And we're going off topic.
So
then there was Mario, Zelda, Sonic the Hedgehog, and then
Sonic the Hedgehog had some pretty good shows.
Yeah, no, Sonic the Hedgehog had like 3 TV shows over the years, but the show I want to talk about today is a show that I said I don't even think you guys will remember that this was a Canadian production, but it was. It was CGI, and just an honorable mention before I get into it. Reboot was a show...
It was about a video game.
Yeah, but it wasn't based off a video game. Reboot was the first CGI animated TV show, and it was Canadian by a Vancouver animation studio, and
Rainmaker, yeah.
And it debuted a year before Toy Story. So, Pixar, the Americans with Pixar got the first ever CGI animated film, but Canada got the first animated CGI ever TV show, and that was Reboot. The similar style animation was used to bring to us Donkey Kong Country. Now, Donkey Kong Country, how do you make a show off of a video game? And Donkey Kong Country on the Super Nintendo was one of the most popular titles known to us gamers back then, because the Super Nintendo was our child, and the N64 was our childhood back then. More so the N64 for me.
I was more of a PS2 kind of guy.
Okay, so then you weren't a Nintendo kid, but
Not
Cody...
really.
I was more of I was kind of a mix of a lot of things. Like, I had the Super Nintendo just as a gift.
Yeah.
And then my uncle had both the Sega Dreamcast and the PlayStation 1.
Oh, wow.
But then my sisters and I, our first, real console for the house, actually, it wasn't until later on, actually. It was PlayStation 2. So I was mainly a PlayStation person, and even to this day I have a 3, and so on.
So then I was the Nintendo kid. I was raised on NES. I had to go to a friend's house to play Super Nintendo, but I did play Donkey Kong Country, and even to this day, I cannot get past the fucking minecart level. Holy shit.
That level can fuck off and die.
You said that there's a cheat code.
There is a cheat. I just haven't used it yet.
Oh, Game Genie, grant me 3 wishes, please.
It's just like a little exploit you can do in the game.
Oh, okay.
So, what is Donkey Kong Country
Donkey Kong
about?
Country is...
Yeah, because I have no idea
I've
what the
never
show
watched
is.
it. So I've watched Reboot, but I haven't watched this.
Donkey Kong Country was the plot of the show was... It takes place on Congo Bongo Island. Yeah. And
you have my interest.
Okay.
So on Congo Bongo Island, it's inhabited by the Kongs, specifically Donkey Kong, Diddy Kong, Candy Kong, Funky Kong, occasionally Dixie Kong, and Cranky Kong. Now, they are in possession of a magical gem called the Crystal Coconut. The Crystal Coconut has all kinds of powers. It can heal you inexplicably. It can cause you to turn invisible. It can turn Cranky Kong into a ghost, like a Force ghost that you see in something like Star Wars. And the plot is King K. Rool, or the show really botched at the pronunciation. In the show, they called him King K. Rool. I have no clue why. But in the show, King K. Rool and his minions, General Clump and Crusha, who are all characters from the games, are trying to steal the Crystal Coconut. And while they're trying to steal the Crystal Coconut, a pirate character that was created exclusively for the show named Captain Scurvy and his crew, Cutlass and Mr. Green Croc, they are trying to steal the crystal coconut as well. So it is a triangle of possession for the over the crystal coconut between Donkey Kong and his friends, King K. Rool and Captain Scurvy and his pirate crew. So essentially, I watched this show religiously on Saturday mornings. I didn't watch it on TV. Back in the day, there was a video rental store across the street from my dad's house, and whenever I was on weekends when I was with my dad, he would rent this VHS tape called Donkey Kong Country: The Legend of the Crystal Coconut. Now, my brother and I were huge fans of Donkey Kong 64 at the time. Mm-hmm. When my dad brought this home and we learned that there was a Donkey Kong TV show, we were ecstatic. And we started watching the show, and it's pretty good. It was pretty good. Donkey Kong's character is a little different from what I expected, because in the game, he's an ape. He's kind of like... I expected him to have this deep, growly voice like Patrick Star from SpongeBob or something, mm-hmm. but not the... But Donkey also isn't the sharpest tack in the box either. That's... DK, in the show and in the games, he's kind of like this half-witted character who just is all muscle and little brains. But in the show... They go a different direction with him, but it works in a different sort of way. Sorry, I can't talk either, Cody. Because you said you couldn't talk either. I can't talk either.
And we are on a podcast.
Yeah.
We can't talk.
So,
we're in the perfect...
What are we doing with our fucking lives?
Yeah. So, anyways, Donkey Kong in the show Donkey Kong Country he's got the personality of a surfer dude. And I guess that's what they were going for, because I guess the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles really made that a trend. They made surfer dudes and skateboarder dudes cool. So Donkey Kong is a little off character from how he is in the games, but it still works because he's still not very smart. He still makes a lot of mistakes, but the show does have lessons. They're not deep lessons, but they take the source material from the game and actually turn it into something that's actually kind of passable. You have characters that have something that the bad guys want. The bad guys try to get it, and the good guys have to fight them off. That's basically how a video game is. Now, and that's how the show was. Now, the show had its really hard laughs, and the VHS tape that I watched had only 4 episodes, but I watched another episode, the holiday special, after, and the holiday special is actually very heartfelt. The holiday episode is basically where all the characters go home for the holidays, and except General Clump, because King K. Rool goes home for the holidays, and so General Clump is all lonely because he doesn't know who his family is. It's actually quite sad. He decides to steal the crystal coconut over the holidays while King K. Rool is away, so that when he comes back from the holidays, General Clump will be able to impress his master. And that's another thing. General Clump is like the kiss ass to King K. Rool. He's always trying to suck up to him. He always wants to be in King K. Rool's good books, because every time the evil plan goes wrong, General Clump gets blamed for it, and Crusha is really stupid, like he is in the games. And they also have the Claptrap make an appearance every once in a while. I honestly only saw 5 episodes, but my favorite one, I feel, was the one that actually played out the last season, because this show was only 2 seasons long. It was called The Legend of the Crystal Coconut, and the plot of this episode is... By the way, I'm kind of jumping all over the place with this, but...
Just like Donkey Kong.
Yeah, no kidding, literally. So, in the episode, there is a spiritual entity on Congo Bongo called Inca Dinka Doo. It's just as bonkers in a way.
I'm picturing you just the way you're describing it. Is that what the pitch meeting was like to make this show?
God.
Describe everything.
Pretty much. Well, it's how do you take a game and turn it into a show?
Well, I was gonna ask you that. When you were just describing all this, it kind of sounded like all these premises can work as a level in a video game.
That's exactly what it was.
So it's almost does it? This kind of ties into the question. Does it hold up? But does it aspects of it hold up to where it's worthy enough to be a game?
I'll tell you this after I finish talking about my favorite episode.
What came first before we go on? Did this come before Donkey Kong 64?
Yes, it did. Donkey Kong 64 came in 1999 at Christmas 1999.
So this was predominantly based on like the Donkey Kong trilogy.
Yeah, the NES, the Super Nintendo,
Donkey
the
Kong
Super
Country games.
The Super
that makes
Nintendo
sense.
trilogy.
That makes sense.
So
yeah, your favorite episode, yeah.
My favorite episode is where Donkey Kong goes to the spiritual like artifact of the island. He's basically a tiki like native head. It's like a combination between Native Americans and the Polynesians, and he's called Inca Dinka Doo. He apparently prophesized that Donkey Kong would be the future ruler of Congo Bongo Island once he comes of age or whatever. That's kind of a plot in the show that never really amounts to anything. Donkey Kong is slated to be like the king of this island, and he's a complete...
King Kong?
Yeah, and Cranky Kong is the grouchy mentor. He's probably my best character. Like, you guys were talking about Grandpa Pickles in the show.
Yeah.
Cranky Kong is exactly how he is in the games. When are you two knuckleheads gonna get out of here and let me get some sleep?
What is it with older characters just being the funniest things in the world?
It's the OK Boomer phenomenon, and the OK Boomer concept. They're past their time and they're just there to mentor the younger generation. And Cranky is the best. Even in the games, like, they write Cranky to be this really funny character. So the Inca Dinka Doo tells Donkey Kong in the Legend of the Crystal Coconut episode, to know everything about the Crystal Coconut, you must give up everything. And guess how Donkey Kong, or DK, interprets this? He interprets, to know everything, you have to give up everything, as I have to give the Crystal Coconut away. So he gives the Crystal Coconut to King K. Rool and his minions, and then as soon as King K. Rool is contemplating how he's going to destroy the world with it, Crusher says, "But General, Donkey Kong just gave us the coconut." And then King K. Rool thinks, they just gave it to us? This isn't a victory. This is a scam. I want you to return the Crystal Coconut right away. So, and then Captain Scurvy comes into the episode and he says, I am here to claim me birthright, the Crystal Coconut, in the name of me great-great-grandpappy. And the whole episode, he has a toothache where he says, I've come to claim me birthright, the Crystal Coconut, and I pity thy landlubber sharkbait that tries to stop me. And then he also swears an oath because he has a toothache where he
Go
says,
figure, a guy named Captain Scurvy having a toothache.
Yeah. So basically, he has a toothache, and then so he says, on my honor, I swear on the great pirate oath to grant any favor to the scum-sucking scallywag who can relieve me of this painful toothache. And the plot of the episode is Donkey Kong inadvertently knocks out his tooth in a fight, and Scurvy acquires the Crystal Coconut successfully in this triangle of possession, and then Cranky says, not so fast! According to your great pirate oath, you owe Donkey Kong a favor! And then Scurvy's like, name your booty, Donkey Kong! And then Donkey Kong's like, oh! So I was looking for the new Monkey Bar catalog, and I want a new, you knucklehead, ask for the coconut! And so then they get the coconut back, and that's the episode. Also, for some...
Round of applause.
Wow.
For some...
What a story, Mark.
What a story.
So,
what a performance.
So, one of the things that... and also one of the things I was kind of puzzling about this, Donkey Kong, they gave Donkey Kong a lame catchphrase. Banana Slammer! He basically would punch some Banana Slammer. Like, you know how, I don't know what it was.
You are what you eat.
I don't know what it was with showrunners giving video game characters horrible catchphrases. I don't know, because Mario in the Super Mario Brothers Super Show had called everyone paisanos, and Sonic always asked for chili dogs, and Link had...
Well, that's not a catchphrase, it's just a character trait.
Yeah, and Link had whatever the fuck that was in the Legend of Zelda show.
So you kind of already said that it only lasted 2 seasons?
Yeah, it ran from 97 till 2000, and I guess they took a year off because the animation.
Well,
in the
yeah,
second season,
I can't imagine the animation process was an easy one.
But they churned out quite a bit of content.
So did the show span like another game or a movie or?
Actually, right when the second season came out, Donkey Kong 64 would have just been made, but by the time the season premiered, they would have had to have animated it by then. So it only ties into the Donkey Kong Country trilogy on Super Nintendo. So there's not too much more to say about this. Like, I only saw like the 5 episodes, but the other premises were there was a practical joke episode where Cranky tricks Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong into going to a forbidden forest and fighting a monster that doesn't exist. There's an episode where DK loses his memory. Okay. And so, yeah, there's not much more to say. It's basically hypothetical levels from a video game turned into stories.
Should it be revived in any way?
No, I don't. It should just. It was a cute little memory. I enjoy revisiting it once in a while. But no, don't revive it. If anything, capitalize off the Sonic the Hedgehog success and make a Donkey Kong movie. I think it could work.
Well, is Donkey Kong like that popular anymore? Like the last game
I'm
came
not
out.
Sure.
The last game I remember came out on the Wii or something.
I
don't really pay attention to Donkey Kong.
I feel like it could be done. It would be absolutely bonkers because the games were bonkers too, like the Rareware games.
Well, even the arcade game was pretty insane. Like, him throwing barrels.
I disagree that Mortal Kombat and the Sega Genesis is the best video game ever. I think Donkey Kong is the best video game. Sucks. Or something? You suck. Any Billy Madison fans get that?
Oh yeah.
You know what? You suck.
Yeah. But anyway, so
does it hold up? I mean,
I'm sure
Lyle and I didn't really have much to say to contribute to that because we had never.
I don't think I ever saw. I saw like a clip and I thought it was like horribly dated.
But
the animation does not age well at all.
Even just hearing this, I'm like, I don't even know if this does hold up. I'm sure the video games have more like.
Yeah.
You know.
The video games have more of an appeal than the show does.
Maybe it shouldn't have been picked up in the first place.
Well, like I said,
Evan, we hate to say it, but maybe this thing should never have existed.
I mean,
maybe a game. Get a game out of it instead of adapting it, because certain mediums they kind of cross sometimes. You know, like when one thing should have stayed either a video game or should have stayed a movie or it should be a show or a miniseries.
But what I didn't know was that it was like a Canadian, like predominantly Canadian production. So it was a collaboration with the French, but I was amazed when I heard that. So it took Canada of all the countries to make a Donkey Kong show.
Yeah.
So that's all. You didn't ask me if this got turned into a movie. God no.
Oh, I think I did. I think it said was it a movie or a game.
It was a game, but it was never rebooted. The show ended after a couple seasons, and now you guys with your like lack of interest are kind of like making me rethink this. But I had fun with it. I got a couple laps out of it.
That's all that matters.
We just didn't have much to contribute to it.
I've never watched the fucking show, so
well, one of the things
I didn't even play that much Donkey Kong growing up to begin with.
So then, I guess. My ability to interest you didn't really
I think I might just skip out on the whole Donkey Kong show.
Fair enough.
At least I learned something about it, though.
Yeah. Well, you know it exists now.
Yeah.
One thing I forgot to mention before we move on, there were songs in the show. I know, Lyle, you're not particularly a music-inclined guy when it comes to having songs or musical numbers in shows. But the songs...
I'm pretty musically inclined.
I thought you were being sarcastic.
I thought so, too.
I just know Lyle doesn't particularly care for musicals.
I don't like musicals, that is true.
But I will say this, every episode of the show had 2 songs, and the songs were awesome. I will say that.
Like as awesome as the DK rap from an N64?
That song is great too, man. Don't shit on that.
No, I said like as awesome as the DK. I wasn't being sarcastic.
I would say just as awesome, or maybe a little better. So,
yeah. I play as Waluigi when I play Mario Kart or Mario Party. That's kind of like my go-to, guys.
Okay. So that's Donkey Kong Country. Moving on.
Okay. Oh, well, my next choice is a little bit more like Cody's, like with Hey Arnold, and your next one coming up is very similar, where it's a nice, grounded show about kids going along with their day. And my next pick is Disney's Recess.
Yeah.
What a great show.
What an excellent show.
This is a damn good show.
One thing, so the show follows a group of 6 kids. We got TJ Detweiler, who's like the leader of the pack, and he guides them along and tells them, if there's like a situation with at play during recess, he's the first one to be proactive and do something about it.
Yeah.
And like all 90s kids, he has a backwards ass baseball cap. Yeah. And then the next one is Vince, who's the jock. He likes the sports. And then there's Spinelli, who's like the tomboy.
Ashley.
Spinelli. She is not like one of those Ashleys.
Spinelli Ashley is her full name.
Let's give some
Spinelli,
context.
Ashley Spinelli.
Can we give some context for who the Ashleys were?
Well,
we'll get to that.
How about I go through the main cast?
Sure.
And then there's Gretchen, who's like the science whiz. Mikey, who's the overweight kid who has a few other qualities. He has an operatic voice.
He has a heart of gold.
And he is the sweetest kid you'll ever see.
Do you know who is his singing? His singing voice was actually
Robert Goulet.
Robert Goulet.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Then we have Gus, who's the military brat, and he's like he has a little bit of an inferiority complex, but every now and then he'll break out of that and really take charge.
He's technically the new kid out of the
He's
gang.
also the new kid, yeah. In the first, he didn't show up the first few episodes.
Yeah.
But he's in the intro of the show, oddly enough.
Yeah.
Oh that's funny. He is in the intro.
Yeah.
So the first couple episodes, kids would be like, "Who's this little shrimp?"
Who's the kid getting gum all over his face and tripping over, knocking the basket of balls? Yeah.
Yeah, and there's some other supporting characters that I like, and like is it their teacher or was it just like who is Miss Finster?
Miss Finster is the lunch supervisor. She's like the hall monitor.
She never really taught a class. She wasn't like Miss Grokey.
Yeah,
Miss. Was a
I
straight-up
love
teacher,
Miss Grokey.
But Miss Finster seemed like the monitor, the recess kind of like
she's that
keeping things in line.
She's a stereotypical mean teacher
Yeah.
that all the kids don't want to be around.
Oh, I had a handful of those growing up.
When
I was in elementary school, I swear to God, when I was in 3rd grade, I swear to God, we had a lunch monitor who was exactly like Miss Finster.
Yeah, I had a grade 4 teacher who thankfully wasn't my grade 4 teacher, but because like my school would split up classes, and like she was like an environmentalist. She was very loud, and like a lot of people loved her, but I was so thankful because I don't like people who yell a lot. And one time she took me aside, like, Lyle, count down these fingers. And I put down the pinky. What happens if you take 3 away from 4? So I was like, I took down the pinky, took down the ring, and because I didn't see a lot of people my age do this, I tried to take down the index finger. And she's like, what are you doing? What are your kids gonna say when they say that I flipped off a kid your age? And I'm like, wow. I had no idea what she was talking about.
I think she was playing a practical joke on you, man.
I don't know. She was pretty loud.
I can see her, like, I can totally see that happening with, like, TJ and Miss Finster's voice. TJ, come over here. What happens if you have 3 fingers and take away 2? All right, now what happens when you take away another 2? TJ, my goodness. What's Principal Prickly gonna say when you hear about that?
Then we talk about Principal Prickly, who's like every principal ever, doesn't like any misbehaving kids. And, I love Prickly. Like, it isn't... Well, actually,
I love Prickly, too.
I didn't like him in the show, but it was only until, like, the movie came out, and we'll get into that.
Oh, yeah.
There's some other kids, like Randall, who's, like,
Randall
Wheeler.
Randall Weems.
Yeah, he's the teacher's pet who always wants to be on good terms with the teachers. And
Bob.
King Bob, who's like the oldest kid in the playground.
He's like a 6th or 5th grader.
He's 6th.
He's a 6th grader.
I mean, same with Hey Arnold is that this whole show has like a civilization.
There's like this hierarchy inside of the.
It's so funny.
It touches on so many different things.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about the Ashleys. It's just like a group of girls who all have the same name.
They have their own clubhouse.
Yeah.
They have a clubhouse.
On the outside, it's a pile of tires, and you go inside, and it's like this glamorous pink, amazing looking hideout.
Well, have you guys ever seen Heathers?
Yes.
Yeah, Heathers. It's a lot like the Ashleys.
Oh my God,
there's
that's
like
right.
3 of the 4 girls are named Heather.
That's
and they all wear like they're all color
and they have a catchphrase too.
Scandalous.
And then let's not forget the fucking kindergartners.
Oh,
who are a bunch of savages.
The Rugrats ripoffs. The Rugrats ripoffs.
Oh, the Rugrats weren't that bad.
I love how their teacher always has like a neck brace around her neck.
Oh,
well, it's true. Kindergartners are a nightmare.
Yeah.
Now, this is a show definitely that I can remember like full length episodes. Like King Gus.
Oh, yeah.
Gus becomes king, and he like falls into his. He just basically goes from like being a humble little king, not knowing what to do, to becoming like a complete dictator. It's such a great episode.
I love the episode where there's like this collectible fad that goes through the school, and TJ missed out on it. So then he like gets so roped into it
that
he
cards?
creates like an economy out of it.
Yeah.
And he monopolizes on it so much that he owns all the cards and none of the kids have any.
It is so
and the whole market crashes and he loses everything again.
It's so relevant.
Yeah.
They actually talk. It's just like with Hey Arnold. Recess was a very mature show because when you have characters like Gretchen, especially like Gretchen is like Lisa Simpson except less of an annoying voice.
Yeah.
Because I love Lisa Simpson, just for the record.
But was she as outspoken as Lisa?
No, Gretchen actually is like the person that they go to whenever like there's an intellectual conflict or an intellectual dilemma.
Yeah.
And also with the music in Recess, there was something very militant about it.
Yeah, it was like the Great Escape or something. It felt like a boot camp.
Yeah.
Or like some
even
sort of
the theme
prison.
song sounds. Even the theme music sounds like
for sure
something you hear in The Great Escape.
Great Escape, yeah.
They're all just putting us through the grind, day after day, being spoon-fed information and barely having any time to play.
I remember. Okay, so this it's another show that falls into like two different categories. One being just a hilarious episode, and then one being like, oh, that was kind of sweet. So one hilarious episode I remember of Recess is when Gretchen had like that little device that would like predict how tall they're gonna be in the future. And they're going through all the characters, and then they get to Mikey, and like the computer's like, "Oh my God, Mikey! It says that you're gonna be like over 100 feet tall." And then everyone were thinking like, they're all thinking, "Oh, it's so cool! You're gonna be so tall." But he like thought it was gonna be horrible, and later on he has like a nightmare where like Principal Prickly's out on his balcony like having a nice meal by himself, and like Mikey just shows up like Godzilla size and steals his meal, and then Mikey just says literally in his exact voice, "Do not resist, or I shall crush you." And Gus's dad, like he's like the military guy. They send the military on him, and it's like full on like Godzilla with like
that's
Mikey
awesome.
Screeching like Godzilla. Like
that is awesome.
It's fucking hilarious.
Wow. And what was the Heartfelt episode?
God.
Oh, I think the Heartfelt episode was when Spinelli had to stay over at Miss Finster's house.
That was gonna be my pick too.
I love that
That's
episode.
a really good episode because I love the build up towards it. It's like she's telling the story. She's all miserable. She has to stay the weekend with Miss Finster, and it turns out Miss Finster's friends with Spinelli's parents. And then it's like, we were going to go away this weekend. We just can't find anyone to watch over Spinelli. And Miss Fisher's like, say, I know a person. Me. And it just cuts to Mikey. No!
Wait, Mikey or Spinelli?
Mikey.
It cuts to Mikey just yelling no because she's telling the story.
Oh,
okay. And then it cuts back to Mikey yelling no.
Okay.
But yeah, so...
And then, like, Finster turns out to be, just like any other adult. They have, like, their own, like, things that they like.
Well, at first, Spinelli finds it so boring being with her.
Unbearable,
and then later on, Spinelli's, like, talking to the phone with TJ, saying, like, I knew Miss Finster was so mean, I just never realized she was so boring. And,
she
overheard that, and you're like, oh...
Is it true, Muriel? Have you gotten boring?
Yeah, Muriel Finster. Yeah,
and
that
then
was her name,
and then to make it up short, they actually she wins Spinelli over by having a luau, and then the kids are like spying on her house to make sure Spinelli isn't.
That was the funniest part. They're like, oh my God, who knows what kind of torture that Miss Finster's doing to Spinelli?
And then Spinelli is in a hula outfit.
And then they just go, guys, let's just never talk about this ever again. And they walk away.
And then when they go back to school, like she says, batting practice, miniature golf tourney, chili dogs in the park, a Sunday I'll never forget. I'm like, why couldn't we have seen that, like, in the episode? That would have been so great.
Well, it was interesting that they were like, well, we had a really great weekend, now it's kind of going back to normal. Like, I have to be the grouchy old teacher, you have to be the student. But then, like, that happens, and then they kind of do, like, a wink-wink.
And
like,
then
we're still friends.
Spinelli, like, looks back and with a smile on her face. That was
like,
so sweet.
Yeah, like... I'm trying to remember another heartfelt episode.
I know one where it's like Mikey takes a kindergartner under his wing and he's trying to civilize him.
Was that the Pee Wee Pals episode?
I don't remember. Oh, I think it was because each of them had to take in a kindergartner.
Tubby! I was trying to remember his name.
Yeah. What was he gonna eat or something?
No, Tubby, don't eat the candy wrapper.
Don't eat the candy wrapper, Tubby. No.
No, Tubby will listen to Big Kid.
Yeah,
I remember that.
Because, like, I think, like, Mikey kind of, like, has a soft spot for the kindergartners, because I think he remembers being, like, the alpha at one point.
Yeah.
I
faintly remember it. And then, like, another part I remember is, like, they were outside, and it's, like, during a heat wave, and they treat the entire playground like a desert.
Oh, yeah.
And the fountain's broken. And I remember that, because when I was a kid, I was always thirsty, because, like, the outside fountains were turned off, and in order to get a drink, you had to ask, like a school guard to, like, hey, can I have some water? And it's like, fine. And then sometimes they'd be kind of, like, crotchety about it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but it's so hot out. I need water. Like, come on.
Another heartfelt episode was the Thanksgiving one with the cans.
Because
remember when?
The can drive. Yeah.
Because actually the holiday episodes, like the Thanksgiving episode and the Christmas episode, were both really heartfelt.
Yeah,
because
the Christmas one was good too, yeah.
They basically. It's all about competition in the Thanksgiving episode, but then once their competitive nature like ruins the whole thing, Mikey says, "Look what you all done! Now nobody's gonna have a good Thanksgiving!" And you actually really feel that.
Yeah, Mikey was like the only one who like actually took it like seriously.
He's like, let's just get cans for people that need it, but then there was like this competitive kind of
he's the one who kind of like had a real heart in it.
Yeah.
Wasn't that the same in the Christmas episode?
In the Christmas episode, Mikey is the only kid in the gang who still technically believes in Santa Claus, and then when the kids try to explain to him how illogical it is to believe in Santa, Mikey tries to prove to them in hilarious ways possible. Like, they go to a mall Santa when there's just a guy who rips off his beard. Hey, you try wearing a polyester beard for 4 hours in this heat! And then there's also the Santa Claus parade where the mayor is Santa. Now that's right, kiddies. I'm Mayor Fitzhugh and Santa Claus. Now you be sure to tell Mommy, Daddy, and all of your other relatives who are of legal voting age that I'm two swell guys rolled into one. It's the perfect balance between hilarious and heartfelt.
But then then he finds this one like nice stranger who's voiced by James Earl Jones.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
You're talking about that jolly fella.
One guy I remember in the show. You remember that substitute episode with Mr. E?
No.
Like it was a while ago. I just remember the substitute, and like TJ couldn't get along with him or something. I forgot the plot.
TJ would.
He was wearing like a brown coat, and he had like
he looked like a guy off the X-Files. Like I'm looking. at a picture
was it
right
like
now.
Did he look like Dustin Hoffman? He looks kind of like Dustin Hoffman this as the substitute in Lisa's Substitute.
I don't really see the Dustin Hoffman thing, but yeah, it is similar.
The brown coat, because Dustin Hoffman had a brown coat.
It looks more like a black coat to me, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways, like, the one thing, I don't remember the entire episode, I just remember how it ends. It's like, so what does the E stand for, Mr. E? And he's like, nobody knows. So yeah, I'm ready to answer some questions now, because I think we've had our fill of resets. The one thing I will say is, like, it was a very, very intelligently written show.
It was.
I love the way they set up the ground rules and how they set up recess as like the one part where the kids are in control rather than the adults.
Yeah.
And it was just nice. There was such a nice, colorful group of people that just...
Yeah. Before we get into the questions, do you guys know the show? Do you guys watch the show Community?
Yes, no. It is very much like that.
I'm living under a rock.
Community. I remember that.
I won't get into it too much, but people believe that like Community kind of stole a lot from Recess in terms of the six characters kind of archetypes.
Yeah.
Where Jeff is TJ, Abed is Gus, Britta is Spinelli, Miss Finster's Pierce. You know, like there's so many similarities, and the irony is that like. Community wanted to run for 6 seasons in a movie, and Recess got 6 seasons in a movie, which is kind of ironic.
That's funny. Yeah, it almost reminds me of Breakfast Club in a way, how each character has their own kind of niche and a group they would fit into, but they still get along and respect each other quite well.
Can I say one episode I remember
that
makes me laugh? I'm sorry, because this does make me laugh legitimately.
What
it was Vince's brother episode where they were like, oh, Vince's brother's coming to pick us up, Chad. And then he ends up being a geek, and they just realize, oh my god, has he always been a geek? Like, he has the glasses, the taped glasses, and the
Vince
pocket
looks
protectors.
Up to him so much.
And then Vince was in denial at the beginning, and then, like, he starts to think, like, oh my god, am I going to turn into a geek? And
I think I faintly remember that episode.
He fantasizes about, like, you know, being out at night when the moon is full, and then he, like, transforms into a geek with the high-waist things, and then instead of howling at the moon, he yells, Nito! Which is like what nerds yell is Nito.
Yeah, I love the catchphrases that TJ would always say. Like, he'd always say, "Oh, that womps."
That one.
Yes.
Or, like, if he likes something, he's like, "Tender."
Did you notice this happened a lot where everyone had like this huge argument, and then someone would either whistle and then be like stopping the argument, or they yell "Quiet!" Yeah, that happened a lot.
Yeah. So,
Okay, yeah,
let's go into the question.
Yeah. So, well, I kind of said it. Is it still running?
No, it's not running
6
anymore.
seasons.
It is not.
Yeah, it is on Disney
It
Plus.
had a great run, and yeah, you can watch the entire thing on Disney Plus now. How long? It was like 1997 to 2001. That's not a bad run actually for a TV show.
Was it adapted into a movie?
There was. It was the best thing ever.
Yep.
Recess School's Out. I watch
It's
that all the time.
It is a damn solid movie.
It is a really solid
Not only
movie.
is it an amazing movie, it's very rare, and it's not even in the Disney Vault rare. It's like you can't really.
Well, it's
find
not rare anymore because it's on Disney Plus.
Oh, that's true.
You can just watch it. Yeah.
But the DVD, but in a pre-Disney Plus world, the
It was
DVD
hard to get
was
your-
very hard to find.
It was hard to get your hands on it. Yeah.
And it goes into what I was talking about earlier. If you're going to make a movie about a show, the stakes are incredibly high. In that,
They
in
are.
that
Yeah,
movie.
James
Like,
L. Woods James Woods wants to destroy Recess.
by shooting a laser at a moon to move it over a bit so that
It's a permanent winter, and
It's
I'm
a
like,
permanent
are you
winter.
fucking insane? You're
It's-
gonna,
you will
you're gonna
dest-
destroy
you-
all the agriculture, and you will make transportation impossible, and you will make the climate so unbearable you'll kill off most of the animals in
You
the
will
habitat.
destroy more than just Recess,
Like,
Mr.
what the
Psychopath.
fuck is wrong with you, James Woods?
my adult brain comes in and I just notice like just a huge flaw in that movie is that does anybody in this town see that giant laser that opens up the roof of
Only
a
the
school
kids see it.
and,
Yeah.
and it comes and it shoots a green laser? Does anybody not see this?
I
Like the
guess-
cops were laughing it off.
Yeah,
in
the cops
movie.
laughed
Like,
it off.
How does
Yeah.
the government not come down on them?
Yeah.
Well, it was a government, like...
It's a shady
ops.
government agency.
It was an ops...
And it has
thing.
probably one of the funniest things in Recess history is Mikey's distraction singing to the guards.
Oh, yeah, and they-
just singing across the street.
And then the guards, being
One by one,
dumbasses, they
yeah.
just run to him. even
Around
though-
the corner of the fence, and all you hear is screaming. So they send more guards, more screaming, and as he's just singing operatic music.
They should have just ignored him because he's not even on. That would have worked better if he was on the property.
But
Yeah.
it's the wide shot that makes
Yeah.
it funniest. It's just this kid across the street just singing an operatic song, annoying them.
Wow, these moon shovels really do a lot.
Oh yeah.
Those digger kids.
The
Um,
diggers, yeah.
No, and I think one of my favorite moments in the movie is when they're in the treehouse and they're just having a fun time. They're like, guys, like, we're gonna grow up and we're not gonna be able to do this anymore. Like,
Yeah,
we
they
don't have
have-
a summer vacation. And then, like, they just start singing, John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt. His name is my name too.
It was nice.
That was such a good
One
moment.
of the things the two things I love about Recess School's Out is the soundtrack kicks ass.
Oh yeah,
Great.
60s stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my introduction to 60s music.
Me too.
And my
man.
mom was so impressed when I'm like humming all these songs that my mom was listening to when she was a kid, and it's like, wow, like I'm impressed with your musical instincts. So then, not only is the music awesome, the whole theme of like the adults interact and teaming up with the kids to save the world is very heartfelt because Principal Prickly gives that speech
Yeah.
about
He
what
has
it's
such
like.
a good character arc in
Yes.
that show.
Yeah.
Or in that
absolutely.
movie, yeah.
Yeah, that scene was really good.
And that end shot is so great.
Yeah, I mean, that's when animation was trying to blend with CGI. 2D animation was trying to blend with CGI, and it's very dated. But the intention of the shot, the intention of the shot looks amazing.
You see a little bit of the 60s graffiti on the school.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
and Prickly puts on his
Medallion.
His
Yeah,
medallion.
his peace sign, yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you guys a story though.
Okay.
Okay. It's a very funny story.
Okay.
So in grade 4, like, yeah, I watched Recess a lot, watched the movie a lot, and I used to quote it a lot, like with my mom.
Okay.
And one day, my mom would always make me my lunch, and then would always put in like a note in the bag to remind me to do something, like just little things like that. And then there was one note that she made where I couldn't tell what she was writing because she had very like strong cursive writing.
Oh.
And I couldn't read what it was saying at first, so I thought it was for the teacher. I'm like, oh, I didn't know what it was, so I asked my teacher, like, hey, can you read this for me? And she read it to like herself, and she kind of went, that's nice, Cody, that's real nice. Okay. And I was like, what's going on? And later on, I go home, I'm like, so Mom, what was that note about? I showed my teacher. She's like, you showed your teacher that note? Are you kidding me? I'm like, I couldn't read what it was saying. What did it say? Your cursive is kind of weird. She said, Cody, the note said, have a very nice day and something else about that. And she said, also, you have a fat, saggy butt that I like to scratch every hour on the hour. And I was like, oh my god, I'm so embarrassed.
That's great.
Because that was a brilliant scene.
It is worth mentioning, for the movies, it is worth mentioning that Recess, there were 2 more movies.
No, there's like 3 more, but they were more like
2 more.
They were more like
that went direct to DVD.
I'm looking at this. It says there's like 4 movies.
There was Taking the 5th Grade, where Miss Finster teaches 5th grade, and the whole year kind of sucks.
What?
Yeah, there's like 4 movies.
Oh,
it says.
There was Taking the 5th Grade and
yeah.
All Grow Down, where it's the opposite of all Rugrats is All Grown Up, where it shows it's a prequel to when they were.
And there was Miracle on 3rd Street.
That was that's a clip show.
Okay. Well,
So
I
technically
guess
there were. I don't count that as a movie.
Yeah, it's more like a compilation.
Yeah, that was a clip show.
Stupid Wikipedia.
So then again,
All Grow Down. I haven't seen either of those.
I've seen. I actually have seen Taking the 5th Grade. It's not quite as heartfelt as Recess School's Out, but the criticism I actually heard from a couple people a few years ago I was talking about Recess was Recess School's Out should have been the end of the show because
I kind of think
I agree.
so,
because
yeah.
Taking the 5th Grade takes place after the events of
How do you go from that to that?
well, because there's even a scene in Taking the 5th Grade where Prickly calls TJ Tej as a nod to their nice touching moment at the end. And it doesn't work at all, like, because they have new problems to deal with, a whole new crisis. The crisis is nothing compared to...
So backtracks almost.
Yeah, that's an insult. Like, they should have ended the show with School's Out.
For sure. To us, that is the finale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like, I can just live in denial. Like, Taking the 5th Grade doesn't really exist to me.
Yeah, I mean, if you just want to, like, if you don't feel like watching the entire show, at least watch School's Out, because it's such a nice... It's a nice little...
There's a lot of setups and payoffs in it.
It's a nice little... It's a nice stew of everything that I love about Recess into one.
Absolutely.
So just check that out if you really want to get into the show.
I guess Cody's next.
Oh, sorry.
We haven't finished the question.
Well,
what are the questions?
I think
actually,
we've said enough.
There is another movie that I remembered that had where Principal Prickly and Finster and Grokey were stuck in the snow, and they were showing episodes.
That's Miracle on 3rd. That's Miracle on 3rd Street.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. I had that on VHS.
Oh wait, no.
I had that
should
too.
it be
revived?
Should it be revived?
As a live
Recess remake Recess.
Just like the Magic School Bus, I have heard talks in the works where they want to do a live action show, but once again, it'll cover them as older kids.
I've seen people attempt to remake the opening with real people, and it's just kind of scattershot.
Yeah.
I don't know, I guess you could make a live action if you wanted to. It's just gonna be like this. It's just gonna feel really cheesy and not as authentic.
And
I don't know.
Abso-fucking-lutely does it hold up.
It does hold up
entirely.
It is such an intelligently written show. It's great.
I recommend everyone watching Recess.
You should at least check it out. It is one of those Disney shows that are one of the best of the best. Right
really
up there
is.
with Kim Possible and.
It is a classic in the Disney shows.
One
really
Saturday morning, I watch that all the time.
Me too.
Yeah.
Doug, Recess. That was my.
Isn't
Saturday
that weird?
mornings.
Doug was both a Nickelodeon property, and then it got bought out by Disney.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's on both Nickelodeon and Disney.
I watched both, not realizing until later on what it was about the quality change in there. But looking back now in retrospect, Disney was really just doing a very pale imitation of the charmness that Nickelodeon made with the earlier show.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of what I got.
I only knew the Disney Doug. I didn't really get Nickelodeon back then, so I don't know Nickelodeon Doug.
And they made a pretty bad movie that I watched a lot.
Me too.
Doug's first and only movie.
Herman Melville.
Wow.
They find a monster in the lake.
Yeah.
And it's just it's such a thin plot.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Roger as a robot that follows him around.
Yeah.
Yeah,
oh my god, there's mystery surrounding a monster, but yet they made a fucking robot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
It's a crazy movie. I should revisit it sometime though, just to see the whole
So Doug gets an honorable mention.
Yeah.
But what's Cody talking about next?
Yeah, what is your next?
My last... Well, I guess, our last...
We're on our last round, everybody.
Yeah.
It's been fun, but we gotta start wrapping things up.
Well, my next show, I guess my last show, is an awesome fucking show. X-Men.
Now, this was pre the Bryan Singer X-Men movies.
Yeah. So
Bryan Singer.
Oh God.
let's not bring him up.
Yes,
We'll bring up
please.
his movies, not him personally.
Yeah.
The
But,
art, not the artist.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so like the 90s show. Now, I did not watch this show a lot, to be honest. I was more like X-Men Evolution.
Yeah.
But like X-Men, the show I know has like a huge amount of following.
Well,
Yeah, let's
I
talk
can't. Well, I can't really talk about the show without bringing up the first movie in 2000 because I thought the movie looked awesome. And funny enough, I told this story to you guys, but just for the podcast, I'll say this. So
Okay.
there's a video store back in Windsor that I used to go to a lot. My mom actually worked there before I was born.
Nice.
Called Top Gun Video.
Yes.
And when I was 7 years old, I remember going to that video store with my mom, and I was like, I want something new and cool that's like sci-fi, right?
Oh yeah.
So at the time, that was 2000, I had 3 movies in my hand. I had X-Men,
Okay.
Titan AE,
Oh yeah. Okay.
and Battlefield Earth.
Oh
Ugh.
fuck off.
I went with...
Can we not talk about Battlefield Earth
No.
ever again?
No, but I had to choose only 2, right? And I chose both X-Men and Titan AE, thank God.
You dodged a bullet.
I dodged
there.
a bullet, not knowing what it was at the time. But yeah, I watched X-Men and I fell in love with the movie. When I found out that it was a show, what my mom did a lot actually was it premiered on Teletoon like around 10:30, 11 at night, right? So that was late for me even for
That
like
is pretty
school
late.
days. Yeah, so my mom would actually record the tapes for me on like this videotape.
Oh, that's nice.
And in the morning, I would just either watch it right before going to school or like wait till I come home or whatever. But Friday nights, I'd be the one recording it because it's it's a weekend.
It's a
so-
weekend.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I
It's
had
not
like a
school night.
good 6 hours worth of tape on this, and I also had the movie in there as well. So it'd be like one episode. I remembered it was one episode, and then the movie, and then the rest is like 5 hours worth of just episodes. And in between that is like sometimes we occasionally forget to like not record the commercials, so you get tons of like nostalgic commercials from the
that's
90s
great.
and like so like coming up on Teletoon, this show and all that. It was kind of cool. If I don't even know if I have that tape anymore,
Man,
but
like that is so 90s, like just like taking a video cassette and recording television.
but
Yeah.
my favorite, like, okay, because I didn't watch the show in its entirety. I just watched a very good chunk of it. But
Okay.
what stuck with me with like this whole show is just the themes of prejudice that it introduced me a lot.
Yeah.
Is like as a kid, and like just like politics, and like there's a left and right. Like there's 2 conflicting ideologies.
There
between
is
Xavier.
there's pro mutant and there's anti mutant.
Yeah.
Well, that's always been the case with X-Men.
That's the
Yeah.
core behind X-Men that I
That's
was
the whole
brought up
point.
to, like at such an early age and I never read the comics too.
Isn't it
Me
kind
neither.
of weird how people love the Avengers, they love Spider-Man, they even like the Hulk, but they really don't like mutants?
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of bizarre?
Well, they kind of delved into that concept in Captain America: Civil War in the MCU, where they had to the superheroes are dangerous, we got to control them because
Yeah.
they're causing too much collateral damage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess, and also, Spider-Man has some hate with, J. Jonah Jameson, and sometimes he isn't always able to save the day.
Well, J. Jonah Jameson is like the Alex Jones of the world, where he's like, Spider-Man's a criminal. He's a public menace.
Let's get back to X-Men.
Yeah.
But this show, yeah, it introduced me to themes back then and just about politics. But on just the surface, the icing on the cake is just the awesome mutant action and the how every character is so well defined in the show.
Yeah, I think
everybody is so.
I think that's the thing that I think X-Men works better as a television show than a movie series. To be
Yeah.
honest.
It's Fox did what they can. I just to go into this very briefly.
Yeah.
I found the Fox X-Men movies so interesting. The highs and lows
It
that they
is
have gone
very
through
hit
in
and
20
miss.
years.
Yeah. It's
Very
hit
high
and
and lows.
miss.
MCU's a good consistent string of good
Yeah.
Yeah.
and sometimes some greats and all that, but
Yeah.
it's just has a consistent sort of line.
It
When
is, yeah.
literally it's like beep, 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 just flatline spike in the Fox
Let's
universe.
redo it.
It's just
New
so
timeline.
weird. I appreciate them taking a lot of elements from the comic books and shows and making it their own thing, but yeah, that's another topic. Though.
Yeah, for sure. But I think with a show,
the show
you have
itself,
a better chance of
yeah.
like delving into every character. Everyone has a moment to shine. It's not just the Wolverine show or the Charles and Eric show.
Yeah.
Like my favorite portions of the show, and I'm sure a lot of people will agree with me on this. It's the Phoenix Saga.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And ironically, that got turned into a movie last year.
Twice.
Yeah, it's been done twice and terribly, I might add.
Yes, you can't do it in one movie. I've said that from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Anytime I see them trying to attempt it and they fail, I just want to quote Dr. Evil when I just go up to Fox and say, Fox, you just don't get it, do you? You don't. Like, you can't make that into a movie. You can either make it into 2 movies where you call one Phoenix and then the next movie Dark Phoenix. But if you know the story from inside and out, like, there's no way that you can. But to go into it, really, it's just about, like, Jean Grey, her powers are that she has a bit of telekinesis, and there's this M-Cron crystal that she needs to, like, that it was going to destroy the world, the universe, and all that. And then there's this entity named the Phoenix that needed like a human host to protect it.
Yeah, they go into outer space.
Yeah, they went into outer space. They had her like preserve the crystal, but Jean had to go with her, so it was a very emotional goodbye. And then later on, she comes back, and they're trying to get the Phoenix out of her, but the Phoenix won't like leave, and they're wondering why, and it's turning her evil. And then she gets corrupted in this cult place called the Circle Club, and basically she just goes off on her own, and then like it's such great like episodic like television, really.
Well, yeah, and every
X-Men,
every member of the X-Men have like a stake in this because like they each have various like connections to Jean Grey, like Scott Summers and Logan especially.
Because that ties in with like what episodes are my favorite, like which one was more entertaining or which one was heartfelt. It was both.
Yeah,
and it was just great episodic. I just wanted to get to it like one after the other.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got like the boxed kind of, just individual episodes here and there, like when they introduced Iceman, Bobby Drake, like that's a great episode. Him and Jubilee had a great dynamic in that episode. The post after the Jean went off as the Phoenix, and how Scott Cyclops is recovering over it. He goes back to his orphanage that he came from. That's another like great little like kind of one-off episode. Like that's one that resonates with me.
I would like to see that.
There was a 2-parter actually that I loved, where Magneto was trying to make like a new utopia on this asteroid.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for just mutants. And there was this one mutant that was like more like, I guess, of a racist than he is, because Magneto invited some humans to like some astronaut humans to this asteroid, and I forget the guy's name. Cortez, that was his name. He was like, "What? Humans are here?" But he's like, "They are my guests. Like, they're not all humans are evil, you know." And then like he kills Magneto, or thought that he kills Magneto, and he takes over the asteroid, and then the X-Men get banished, and they had to like infiltrate it in the second episode. It was cool. It was
That's
cool.
That's actually not bad.
Yeah, it was very.
And then there's like the Apocalypse saga.
Apocalypse is indestructible. Yeah, well, I didn't know this, but like it was cool to see like Dark Angel, where he came from, and his vengeance towards Apocalypse. Yeah, like
so that's why I think it's better as a TV show, because you have all these links and like character growth, but it doesn't feel so instantaneous.
The problem is that I didn't know this until years later, so we had it on Teletoon here in Canada, and I think there was like a mix-up with a lot of like studios trying to put these episodes together, because even me as a kid noticed this a few times. There'd be like one character talking, and like they're not talking, or you're just hearing just their audio, or another character is saying that person's audio. So there's a lot of like
there's a lot
errors.
of animation gaffes.
There's a lot of errors, and I was wondering what that was about, and there was weird like crossover animation kind of stuff going on in it, like weird editing choices too, that I always like, is that the style of the show, or is that a mistake? Like, and I didn't find out till years later there was just a lot of studio like interference of them trying to get as much episodes out as possible, that a lot of animators and studio recorders were just trying to, like, I guess for lack of a better word, half-ass the project just to get it out on time. But then later on, like, it was
animation.
But then later on, the States got a better preserved kind of like what's the word? Like, it was restored better.
Restoration?
Yeah, the restoration was a lot better in the States later on when they fixed it up and they had time to go back, but
Okay,
yeah.
that's good.
Yeah. But yeah, did you guys watch any of it?
I didn't watch very much of it because I was far more into X-Men Evolution at the time.
Yeah.
And I didn't. I think it was a little before my time.
I didn't watch.
I'm so old. You make me
I'm the
so
youngest one here. So.
I didn't watch it at all. Well, I'm the oldest one here, and I didn't watch it all because superheroes scared the shit out of me until I saw. No, seriously, don't stop
That is
laughing.
so funny knowing you now.
Well, like
with all these action figures in your room.
I know.
And all.
It's ironic because up until
Face your fears.
no, like
Embrace
superheroes scared the shit out of me, and I got over this fear because my dad dragged me to see Spider-Man in 2002. But we'll get to that at another time. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
so
Sure.
I didn't watch this show at all, and yeah.
They had some really cool characters in the show. Like even though I'm a huge fan of Cyclops, I know Gambit
Gambit
was the most awesome character.
And do you guys want to talk about how the former chair of our film school that we all went to,
Rick Bennett.
Rick Bennett.
was the voice of the Juggernaut?
Juggernaut,
He was
yeah.
the Juggernaut.
Rest in peace, Rick. Rest in
Yeah,
peace.
he was a
May
Yeah.
Rick Bennett very sadly passed away last year. May he rest in peace.
Mhm.
Love to his family.
Yes.
He did a voice, and also, if you guys ever watched, oh my god, I'm forgetting the name of it. Hang on. The Big Comfy Couch.
Oh, Big Comfy Couch should get an honorable mention.
Yeah, Unette the clown in that episode or in that show is the voice of Jubilee.
No kidding.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Oh,
and I
wow.
can hear it now when I go back and
Now
forth.
every time you think of Jubilee, I'm gonna think of Lynette. That's funny.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fun fact. I forget her name, but she's a Toronto actress. I just forget her name.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is the show still running? I should probably fact
There's
check.
been a lot of reiterations of X-Men.
X-Men. It's based on a
So,
comic.
like,
I'll
Wolverine
get a
and
lot of
X-Men.
I'll get a lot of hate for this, but I've never read. I don't read that much comic books.
I don't
at
read.
all.
I don't read
Like,
that
at
many
all.
comics either.
Like I never read
just
the
like the
comics.
movies.
I
I just know
respect it.
I know the characters.
I respect it, but I just was more into the show because I'm just more of a visual guy.
Yeah, same here.
And yeah, X-Men has just been around for so long, and it still kind of is. But I think just that animated series knew how to capture the essence of what Stan Lee and the creators were trying to do with the comic books very well. So it was like this kind of lightning in a bottle thing.
Yeah, it had a good run, I would say.
Yeah.
Was it adapted into a movie?
Several.
Yeah.
Very.
And Fox rebooted it. Fox has to reboot it every 2 years, or else they lose the rights.
But what I'm saying is, was this 90s show ever turned into a movie?
Like direct to DVD or
Like, was there ever, like, a
I'm actually not
theatrical-
sure. Actually,
Wasn't there one about Kitty Pryde or something?
I'm not sure.
I think like Pride of the X-Men. Like, wasn't that a movie? Or like at least a TV movie?
Sure.
Okay. Well, I can't quantify it, so never mind. Okay, so aside from like the Bryan Singer films, yeah, it wasn't really. From what I don't remember there being a 90s movie, but should it be revived if it hasn't already?
It probably. Can we just safely assume that a series about the X-Men exists somewhere, because they're still cranking out Avengers.
I don't know
animated.
if there is. Yeah, there are a lot of Spider-Man and Avengers shows now. I don't know if X-Men has a show right now. There was a show called Wolverine and the X-Men. I remember that when I was in high school. I remember that was around. I don't think that's on anymore.
I mean, we're talking about this in 2020. Like, this is a year after supposedly like the film franchise like ended.
Yeah,
I think right now,
I might add,
give it some time, and if you want to do something more closer to the tone of the animated series, which I guess like Marvel will now do.
Apparently there was a live action series called The Gifted. And then there's and then New Mutants. That's a movie. I don't think we're ever gonna see that.
Never,
quite honestly.
We are never gonna see that.
It'll come out
it's a myth.
It'll come out 10 years later, and we'll just say like, whatever.
Yeah.
It's not gonna
it ends up being an average movie after
honestly,
all these delays.
It's just forgettable as fuck.
So technically, the Gifted, Legion, and The Gifted are both live action shows based in the X-Men saga that ran until 2019.
The last animated X-Men show came out in 2011. It was called Marvel Animation Wolverine.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And it looks.
All I'll say is that if they ever want to revive like the same type of like tone as the 90s one, I would say just give it some time.
Yeah.
It's a little too
we
soon.
need a break.
The era of X-Men is a bit like kind of it's run its course. It didn't end off on the best note with Dark Phoenix. So I would say yeah, like it should be revived some way. Keep it going, because like
But
there's themes, there's some great things in there that should be still.
Yeah.
So would you say that the '90s X-Men show holds up?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's on Disney Plus if you want to watch it. So
That's also
it's,
true.
It's readily available.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Lyle, I'm almost. Is there anything else you want to say, Cody? Or
Oh no, that's it.
okay,
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
So, I'm almost willing to switch my last pick with yours because yours is a superhero show too. Not to give you.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking you could have picked this one instead of Donkey Kong when we were talking about relatable cartoon shows.
But I want to bring it back to relatable cartoons. But can we, to continue the superheroes streak, can you talk about your show next? Or
very well, I suppose.
Yeah. Just gotta keep the trend going and then I'm gonna bring it back home.
Yeah.
Okay. So my next pick is another very highly venerated superhero show, the Batman animated series.
Ah, yes.
What an excellent show. Remarkable too, because like at that time, like we had the Adam West show, and then we had some Burton stuff. With
Is that Mark Hamill's?
Jack Nicholson?
No,
That's Mark Hamill.
that's Mark Hamill's joke.
yeah.
Oh. I don't remember him laughing like that, but yeah.
I didn't
we have
all I know
the
is
animated
that
show was like very groundbreaking at the time because it had so much mature subject matter. It was very, very stylistic and
Yeah.
grim. Like I remember when I first watched the show, I was actually even kind of put off by the intro, like the way Batman like he approaches like criminals on the rooftop is like doo 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 doo, and his slits just get so narrow, and he just brutally beats them up, and it was so stark.
There's a lot of atmosphere in the show.
It's atmospheric. It's
Yeah.
moody. But at the same time, like I really like the kind of creativity they put into the show. Like all the, it's like one of those things I always say about Batman. Like the Rogues Gallery is so interesting that sometimes I forget. Oh yeah, Batman's in the show.
Yeah.
Because there's so many like good character beats that each villain has.
Like the villains are so bright looking when you see them, and they stand out compared to like the universe of Bruce Wayne and Batman in the show.
It's all.
It's
It's
my
very
only
cool.
regret with that show is that like I loved the show and I watched a handful of episodes. My only regret is I didn't watch it as much as I wanted to in retrospect.
Yeah.
Like I wish I was a kid watching that religiously, but I've only watched like whatever videos that they had.
Yeah,
that
me
was-
too. It was a little before my time, but
Yeah.
I still remember watching episodes of it.
Like random episodes, yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember one. It was the Riddler. It was the Edward Nygma kind of backstory on how he gets fired, and then he kidnaps his boss and puts him inside of this maze. And he has Batman and Robin go through like this maze to try to move forward. They have to figure out these little riddles to get to the center of the maze where the boss is being held captured.
It was funny because when you first started, he got fired and then he took his boss. I thought you were talking about the plot of Batman Forever.
Well, I mean. That
Yeah.
I watched that movie and then I saw that episode and I thought the episode was way better.
Yeah.
But I'm a defender of Batman Forever. I was about to say Batman and Robin.
I like Batman Forever too.
It's been a long time since I've seen it. I didn't really enjoy it that much when I was younger.
Rest in peace, Joel Schumacher.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And there was another episode of it where, or maybe I'm thinking of the movie. Because they did a crossover movie with Batman and Superman.
Superman, yeah.
Yeah, and it was
Batman
the Joker.
Superman movie.
Yeah.
When Lex Luthor and Joker teamed up.
Which is a far better film than anything Zack Snyder can get his hands on of a crossover.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but it's true. No one can
you
deny
imagine?
it.
Can you imagine Jared Leto and Jesse Eisenberg teaming up to
gosh.
fight Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill?
Well, then you'd have Deathstroke there too, and
yeah, and
But
then Wonder Woman.
Kevin Conroy has like
Oh, we gotta
the
talk
most
about the voice cast.
perfect voice for Batman Bruce.
It took me a while to get adjusted, but yeah, now anytime I think of Batman's voice, I immediately think of Kevin Conroy.
There's only Kevin Conroy.
Yeah.
Like he's done it in the video games. He's done it in.
He was in the Arkham games. He was
yeah.
in, yeah.
So with Mark Hamill.
Yeah, Mark Hamill. I did not realize it was Mark Hamill until I was like in grade 9, and I was like, whoa. Luke Skywalker's the Joker?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Pretty crazy.
and of
And
course,
he's so good in it.
Given the themes the show touches on, it was absolutely perfect back in 2016 or 2016 going into 2017 when he went on I think it was Stephen Colbert's show and he read Trump tweets in the Joker's voice. Happy New Year to all, especially my many enemies. Who I can't remember exactly what the tweet was, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
That's one thing I like about Mark Hamill. Like, unlike a lot of modern Jokers that are like so grim and psychologically damaged, Mark Hamill's was like probably the most comic accurate Joker we've seen because he was both funny and completely insidious.
Yeah.
And he could pull off a lot of schemes that would like get people killed if Batman doesn't intervene.
Well,
I remember one line he said that always makes me laugh. I always go back to it. It was the one. It was like something to do with fish, and Harley Quinn's allergic to fish.
Oh.
But it was something like, I don't remember the plot, but I just remember Joker is like winding up a fishing pole, and he's like, "I'm going to make you look like a grilled cheese sandwich." Like he says off-color stuff like
what's
that.
What's really interesting, and it's worth mentioning that Harley Quinn was not.
Harley Quinn was a new character.
Yeah, Harley Quinn was created for the show.
She was
invented
for the show.
She was never in the comics, but she became such a popular character that she eventually got her live-action adaptation and the most obnoxious couple costume for the Halloween of 2016.
Yeah, everyone always kind of romanticizes her relationship with Joker, but even in her first debut, like Mad Love, which is an episode I always remember from the show, is so goddamn sad. It shows Harley Quinn like trying to like be romantic with Joker, and Joker's just always abusive to her, doesn't pay attention to her.
Yeah.
And she, in order to get his affection, she actually manages to capture Batman. And then she's like, "No, Joker will love me!" And Batman just breaks down laughing at her. And he's like, "You fool. You know, you should know better than to fall in love with Joker." And and then she gets even madder. And then, like, Joker comes in and sees that she's captured Batman, and he's angry at her because it's his job to capture Batman, and he literally smashes her through a window, and she lands on the ground of this really tall building, and it's super sad. And the saddest thing is when they all get arrested at the end, like, Harley's, like, thinking herself in her, like, psychiatrist voice, like, before she becomes Harley Quinn, because it's her origin story, and, like, she's like, "I'm never gonna fall for Mr. J again, I'm over him," and then, like, she finds flowers given to her by Mr. J, and she starts smiling. He's like, "Oh, isn't he the greatest?" Like, that's just so sick.
Like, I like, it's clear to me that the show definitely derived its style and atmosphere from Tim Burton. Like, it kind of carried that over because...
There's definitely, like, a lot of gothic material in that show.
Because Danny Elfman does, like, the theme of the show, and...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like, it clearly came from Tim Burton's kind of,
isn't
like,
it just the same theme as the first Batman movie?
No, there's a bit of a variation. Like,
okay.
89 Batman has, like, dun 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 dun,
and the cartoon's like do 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 do.
Yeah. You talk about the Joker. What I thought was kind of interesting is the Joker, like the Jack Nicholson live action Joker, is a really good combination of hilarious and like horrifying. Like there's a scene where, like Kim Basinger asks him. Is it Basinger or Basinger?
Basinger.
Basinger. Kim Basinger asks...
You watch The Simpsons.
Yeah. Kim Basinger asks... God damn it, Ron Howard. But, so, Kim Basinger asks, what do you want? And then he smiles, my face on the $1 bill. Like,
my face on the $1 bill.
It makes you laugh, and it's also, like, really... It's also really eerie. But then you watch... Not saying... I'm not in any way, shape, or form saying that Heath Ledger's Jared Leto's... Fuck Jared Leto. Jared Leto's
Heath Ledger's Joker
or Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. I'm not saying they're bad, but the edge factor with them is they're not very funny Jokers.
Well, they're realistic Jokers.
Yeah.
It's like if you could see Joker in like a modern day setting, this is how they would act. Or,
yeah.
In Nolan's verse, I do appreciate their takes as well. I do think they're like very worthy as being called some of the best Jokers around.
That's just the one thing I appreciate Batman in general. It's just it's changed so much of different tones and different takes on it throughout the generations.
There's a lot you can do with them.
Yeah.
There's a lot you can do.
But in the animated show, I didn't watch it very much. I didn't watch it because for reasons I mentioned earlier. But
if you're afraid of superheroes. If you're afraid of superheroes, then this show would probably kind of like give you the creeps.
I want to check it out.
It could be unsettling at times.
I want to check this out now.
Honorable mentioning is the 90's Spider-Man show.
That's a good superhero show too.
I only remember the very last few episodes of that show. That's all I watched.
I remember Dr. Octopus.
Was that Spider-Man Unlimited or
no? It was Spider-Man Secret Wars and the Spidey universe, where it was kind of reminded us of. kind of reminded me of when I saw Into the Spider-Verse.
There's a little bit of a breath into the world of like various dimensions. Yeah.
And then he meets Stan Lee at the very last episode.
Oh wow!
Like he goes to our universe where he meets Stan Lee, and Stan Lee's blown away that like a real Spider-Man came in from another dimension to see him today.
That's nice.
It was cute.
Yeah. One episode. I'll just mention one episode I loved the most out of Batman. I don't know if you know this, but one of my favorite Batman villains is surprisingly Mr. Freeze.
Yeah.
Because originally Mr. Freeze was a very one-note character. He just shot people with guns and he ran. He always robbed banks. There wasn't much to him. But the animated show was the one that actually gave him the development of he has a terminally ill wife that keeps cryogenically frozen.
Well, Batman and Robin did that.
Batman and Robin touched on it, but it originated in the animated show.
Yeah.
And it was, that was such a good episode. I think it won awards for just how great it was.
They made a movie, Sub-Zero.
Yeah, we'll talk about the movies later, but,
How long did it run for again?
Well, there were two versions of the show. There was the original run, and then there was the Batman Robin animated series, which was a little bit more, a little goofier in tone, I think. Oh, man, that reminds me of one episode. There's an episode where, it was sort of like a what-if scenario. Like, what if Barbara Gordon died while being Batgirl? And, it just goes down such a downward spiral of a road where, almost everyone is either arrested or gets killed off.
Wow.
And then it's just all a dream at the end. So, I mean it when I say it's a what-if scenario. But, yeah, that was another really grim episode. It had a lot of character arcs, too, because there was more than one Robin. There was Dick Grayson, who later evolved into being Nightwing. I don't know if Jason Todd was in the series. I think because I know Tim Drake was the Red Robin. He was the youngest Robin they had.
Yeah,
who got really fucked up in the Batman Beyond movie. I don't know if Jason Todd was in the show. I don't know.
Was it? If I ask you, was it adapted into a movie? It was several movies.
There were a couple movies,
but there's one worth mentioning.
There's two here that I see. I assume you're referring to Mask of the Phantasm.
Absolutely, because that is a legitimately good movie.
Wow, that one goes to some really twisted places.
Yeah, it is a really good one.
Yeah, that's a great one. Very underrated. And the one I saw, speaking of Mr. Freeze, was Batman Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero.
Yeah.
I saw that a couple times.
I never seen it, but I remember because it played every time I watched Space Jam growing up on VHS. That was always one of the previews that played in front of it. It's gonna get cold this summer. Very cold.
I loved Mr. Freeze.
That's all design. I remember the tagline.
I like the design of Mr. Freeze in that show because he has these soulless red eyes. Yeah. He has almost this Martian suit. And
it's like a spacesuit that you can't wear.
He always talks in this really deep, "I'm coming to get you, Batman."
And they wanted to Nora. They wanted to go with that design for Batman and Robin and have Patrick Stewart play him.
Oh,
and why they didn't do that, I have no idea.
That would have been I don't want Patrick Stewart and Batman and Robin.
Because he would.
I think Arnold Schwarzenegger kind of fit in that cheesy pastiche that they went with. He would have fit better than Patrick Stewart. And I don't mind, Arnold Schwarzenegger's, Mr. Freeze is so laughable that I quote it even to this day.
Yeah. Everyone does.
Yeah, it's so, he's so fucking funny in that movie.
Fun fact,
what killed the dinosaurs?
The Ice Age! It's interesting to, correct me if I'm wrong, but, in the 60s Batman show, George Sanders, who was the voice of Shere Khan in the Jungle Book from the 60s, he was Mr. Freeze in the animated Batman, in the original Batman show.
I faintly remember him in that show.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm actually not sure about that.
Yeah, but another thing is in the animated show for Mr. Freeze, they adapted him to a T in Arkham City, and he's one of the best parts of that game because his boss fight is so multi-layered. Yeah. He catches on to every single thing you do when you try to fight him, and you have to keep coming up with new strategies in order to get the upper hand.
Yeah.
But yeah.
An interesting question is that if I'd ask, should it be revived? It almost feels like that tone has been revived in film and in that's kind of the way we perceive Batman now.
It has quite a legacy. To be honest,
there's the Nolan kind of tone.
The Arkham games take a shitload of elements from the animated series. Even some of the voice cast return.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But to do it as a show again, I don't know if it's necessary because it's always so relevant in other mediums.
It'll come. It's a genius concept of cross-platform storytelling. If it's not if it doesn't come back as a show, it'll come back as a game or as a movie.
Yeah,
it still rings true throughout even modern interpretations of Batman. So yeah. I don't think it needs to be revived. I think just stick with just watch that series. It is
so it certainly holds up.
It holds up.
Okay.
I like how that question is sometimes the fourth question is sometimes answered in the third. He's like, I don't think it needs to be revived. It's perfectly fine on its own. Does it stand up? What did I just say?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my last choice is the animated series.
Good
Please check it out.
Very good choice.
To bring us home, we've covered a lot of stuff about the relatability of growing up, and I said before that I was a TVO Kids kid, and this was my favorite show on TVO Kids. In Canada, its home was the CBC and TVO Kids in Ontario, but in America, its home was PBS.
Yes.
And there's just one thing I just like to say, and I say, hey, what a wonderful kind of day.
If you learn to love and play.
Work and play.
And
get along with each other.
Hey!
Arthur.
What a wonderful kind of day.
Hey!
What a wonderful kind of day.
Hey! Hey! DW!
Hey!
Oh!
Arthur.
I love Arthur. It is
man.
What's interesting... Okay, so I don't even know where to begin with Arthur. So basically, it's based off the children's book series written by Mark Brown.
Yeah.
His show was turned into a series in 1996, and basically its heyday was the 90s. It started to dip in quality after 2000, 2001, but by the time it hit 2000, it had 4 seasons under its belt. So that's incredible to me. So who is Arthur Reed? Is an anthropomorphic aardvark
Who looks nothing like a goddamn aardvark.
He really doesn't.
A-A-R-E-V-A-R-K.
A-A-R-D-V-A-R-K.
He looks more like a bear than an aardvark.
Well, what's interesting is the whole show, the whole cast is anthropomorphic animals. So
yeah. It's kind of like Franklin, where he gets a name, but then all of his other friends are named after their species.
Our American
what makes you so special, Franklin? You are not a Franklin. You are a goddamn turtle. Now act like one. Get on your
go
knees.
eat some pizza or say cowabunga or some shit. But our American audience isn't going to know who Franklin is because that's an exclusively Canadian thing.
Yeah.
What about Arthur?
Arthur was an American-Canadian co-production.
So
and the author was American, I believe. So
okay.
let me fact check this.
Okay, well,
yeah. So anyway, Arthur Reed he lives in the fictional Elwood City, and I've read that the aesthetic of Elwood City is based very much off of Boston or the suburban part of Boston.
That, yeah.
Have any of you been to Boston?
I wouldn't mind checking it out.
Actually.
They got good clam chowder.
Oh yeah, but so it's implied that it takes place near a lake, but it's kind of a landlocked city because the ocean is implied that it's sort of close by.
Okay, but how's the show?
Yeah, so the show is phenomenal. This show is all about growing up, and it's so diverse that literally every and any topic that you can think of, Arthur has covered it. Like when it came to growing up,
it's true.
It's so vast.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk about a bit of the characters because there's way too many to get into. In fact, there's so much material to cover that we may have to save a deep dive of Arthur for another day because it's already been a long episode. But the point is, so Arthur, like I said, he's an anthropomorphic aardvark who lives under his parents. They're all kids. They're in 3rd grade. So he lives with his parents, David and Jane. And David is a caterer and one of the most peculiar and influential chefs you'll probably ever see.
And he's always trying to make his damn souffle.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that's what his parents' names were.
Yeah, because they're
David
usually called,
and Jane.
I didn't even know that.
Mom or dad.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
wow.
His mother Jane is mentioned. She's called Jane once.
What does she do?
Jane is an accountant, and she runs. Both his parents work, and they're both usually very busy, but they're not workaholics. There's tons of episodes where
their grandma comes.
Grandma Thora is the best. In fact, she actually kind of reminds me of my Nana. Grandma Thora was just how knowledgeable she was and how cool she was.
She reminds me of my Oma too.
Yeah. And then there's Grandpa Dave, who lives on a farm. And so that's just the Reed family. Oh, I forgot to mention there's Baby Kate.
You're also forgetting
the same cry that she does every time.
D.W. fucking Reed. Oh my god. Her full name, we call her, everyone knows her as DW, but her full name is
Dora Winifred. Dora Winifred.
So
I don't remember any of these details.
Oh my god. So basically,
it's been years since I've seen it. So,
it's been years for me too, but I remember it fondly.
So that's just, but DW is one of the most annoying child characters in all of animation.
Okay, Ultimate Deathmatch. Who would win? Angelica Pickle. Is her last name Pickles?
Yeah.
Okay, she's a Pickles. Helga or DW. Who is the worst?
Who's more annoying?
Just overall, like, I can't stand.
This is that you guys are gonna have to do this because I didn't watch your other shows that often, but I'm very familiar with DW.
Okay, yeah, DW.
DW I'm completely biased, but DW.
Maybe I should make a quiz.
DW gets more progressively more annoying as the series plays out. Like we want to talk about there is some slight chronology with the show, but DW, one thing about DW is that she is progressively more annoying with each season. But we're gonna have to do a deeper dive into that. So the show is predominantly about Arthur's friends and their adventures in the 3rd grade and just in life in general. That's the plot of the show. Occasionally they'll dedicate some episodes to DW and her friends, who she's in daycare.
So it's kind of like Hey Arnold and Recess, where every character gets like their time to shine.
Now,
it's a community.
Arthur's friends, his best friend is an anthropomorphic rabbit named Buster Baxter. Now, Buster is one of the most fascinating characters because he's I wouldn't even call him stupid. He's not like the dumb friend. He's very naive. He's
a little simple.
He's simple-minded, but he's naive in the most lovable way possible. He's deeply creative and deeply funny. Like he aspires to be a stand-up comedian, and I think he'd actually be really good at that. If they ever were to do a spin-off where the kids and Arthur grow up. We'll talk about that later, but if they ever do a spin-off where they grow up, Buster would probably be the stand-up comedian who writes conspiracy columns in his spare time, because he's a deep believer in aliens and UFO culture.
Yeah.
And and he's always the guy who assumes that the shady character a character we don't know a lot about is an alien. Francine Frensky is an anthropomorphic, I think, chimpanzee, where she's very athletic, she's very outspoken, very competitive, but she's, of all the characters who play musical instruments, she actually makes her musical instrument a hobby because she's a drummer, and she's a good drummer too. But she's very competitive. She can be rude at times, but she does have a heart of gold. She's kind
of like Spinelli in that she has that tomboy.
She really does.
To her.
And you didn't.
That was common in the 90s. Actually,
you didn't touch upon this in Recess, but there is an episode where TJ and Spinelli kiss just to experiment. Ooh. There is an episode of Arthur and the Square Dance, where a rumor gets started. Binky and Muffy think Arthur and Francine are in love with each other, and they actually try to get them to kiss, and then the kiss doesn't happen, but they do agree.
I did read that one Arthur book, Arthur's Valentine, where like Francine asks Arthur to give her a kiss, and he gives her like a Hershey's kiss instead, and leaves the.
That's cute.
It's funny when you said Binky, because Binky reminds me a lot of Harold from Hey Arnold.
Yeah.
Where, borderline bully, but borderline kind of friend. He's very selective on what he...
I actually think Binky reminds me a lot a lot more of Nelson from The Simpsons.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I always just look at Nelson more as the bully, but there's never been there's been a few times
where
difference
between
he's
Nelson
been friends with Bart, but like
the difference is like Binky certainly like chills out.
Binky doesn't break
after
the
a
law.
while.
Yeah, but the thing is,
of course not.
The difference, and Binky has a really decent home life. Like both his parents are together, and he's not like an impoverished character.
Yeah.
And one thing I forgot to mention about the family dynamic is Arthur and his parents like both work. They both live a very standard like suburban home that they own. Buster lives in a townhouse, and his mother is single.
Yeah, his parents divorced.
He's the only character in the main group of friends where his parents are divorced. Francine lives in a low rent condo, and her father, who is the coolest parent character on the whole show. Her dad, Oliver Frensky, is the coolest parent character. He's a garbage man, and there actually is an episode where she's embarrassed to admit that he's a garbage man, but they totally own up to the fact that he's
I don't remember any of these details.
I don't remember that.
That's crazy.
And then there's like Muffy.
Okay, you want to talk about the girly girl? Muffy is the most is probably not quite as annoying as DW, but she's pretty up there.
She reminds me of Phoebe from Doug.
She reminds me of Veronica from the Archie comics because she's like really well off compared to all the other characters.
And do you want to know what the real joke of it is?
Phoebe's a good example.
Muffy's mom is a stay-at-home mom. She lives in a mansion. Do you know what her dad does for a living?
Is he a car salesman or something?
No. This is where the real punchline is. I think that it's an in-joke that they are trying to make. Muffy's dad is not just a car salesman, but he is a used car salesman. And this guy,
right.
the family has enough money to match Jeff Bezos. Like they are that rich. Like they can pay for anything. Muffy always brings the coolest toys and the coolest gadgets to school, and
she's always fashionable.
And she's very stuck up. But for some reason, Muffy and Francine become best friends. Like the tomboy and the girly girl are the best friends. So I think that's actually a really interesting dynamic.
I also really like the Brain.
I love his first name is Alan. I genuinely do not know what his last name is, but
it's Brain.
Yeah, no.
Alan the Brain.
Alan the Brain.
The Brain.
Pinky and Alan the Brain.
Yeah.
Alan and the Brain.
Oh,
that's what they were going for.
That would have been a good episode.
Pinky and the Brain have so many episodes where they're just a unit together, and it's
Pinky and the Brain. One is a genius.
Just for
other one's a bully.
Yeah, if I had to.
Pinky and the Brain would have been good for this episode.
Yeah,
too.
honorable mention.
Well, we'd have to talk about Animaniacs, really,
yeah.
because
that's probably going to have to be its own episode.
I didn't really watch that show a lot, so that's why I didn't pick it.
Fair
But back to Arthur.
So
back to Arthur.
And now back to Arthur.
Yeah, that
Followed
was cool. Arthur had the in between segment where live action kids talk about the episode we just watched.
Or I remember them like painting and doing arts and crafts.
Yeah, and they went to really little kids. Like they went to kindergartners or first graders. But then, and Binky Barnes is probably my favorite character. He's he's the frenemy. He's a.
I like his voice.
Yeah. Oh, and also there's Sue Ellen Armstrong. She's not a mean character ever. She's overly nice, and she's probably the most diverse because she's that family she's the new character. Like she's like Gus from Recess. Her parents aren't in the army. Her parents are just explorers and travelers, and her dad has had like jobs that move him all over the world. And
Cody's face is so perplexed by your knowledge of Arthur.
No, I just don't remember these characters actually. What were their names?
Sue Ellen Armstrong.
She was the mouse. Was she a mouse?
I don't think so.
Was she like small?
No, that's Fern.
Yeah, Fern.
Okay.
She was the
Fern
dog.
Walters.
She was the self-conscious one, yeah.
Yeah. Fern is the quiet one who's a poet.
Where's that moose-looking kid?
George?
Yeah, he gave everyone head lice.
George actually...
God damn it, George.
What's interesting is George didn't really come into his own until like 4 seasons in.
It's like Butters from South Park.
Yeah.
George is the Butters.
I don't think... What's interesting is George... I stopped watching the show like after the 5th season because by the time
we grew out of it.
Yeah, you do grow out of it.
That's going to come into one of the questions later, but we'll get to that.
But yeah, so basically, George gets tested for dyslexia, and he actually gets he's shown to be dyslexic. And my friend many years ago, I don't think our audience knows this, but I've mentioned a couple times in the last couple episodes about the autism spectrum. I'm actually on the autism spectrum. Evan, I have Asperger's syndrome. I was diagnosed when I was 5, and a few years ago, Arthur actually covered Asperger's syndrome. Like I said before, any topic you can think of that is relevant to childhood, Arthur has covered it. Everything. They have literally been on for that long. They have covered so much.
Wow.
Now, the episode where they talk about Asperger's syndrome, because apparently it's revealed that George might have it, and Brain, I think, explains what Asperger's syndrome is like to George. And because Brain is the only one who would be like really knowledgeable about that. Because Brain is very scientifically inclined. There's even one episode where he casually just says, "I can make rocket fuel easily," and I'm like, kid, are you going to be on the FBI watch list?
Timothy McVeigh over here.
Yeah. Or Dexter from Dexter's Laboratory. But anyways,
none of the same ilk as Timothy McVeigh.
So that's the characters and the episode.
Oh, you forgot a few. You forgot the principal.
Oh yeah, Principal Haney.
He's great.
He's like this bumbling.
He's so hard done by.
Yeah.
I remember one episode.
He wears glasses.
I remember the episode where he's like getting ice cream and Arthur accidentally ties him to his bike.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Wait, isn't there a clown that's allergic to dogs?
That's Pickles the clown. He's not a very reoccurring character.
I don't remember that guy.
How do I remember
That's in the episode where Kate wants a balloon at a carnival and she starts crying, and then by the way, Arthur's dog's name is Pal.
Pal.
And we are forgetting the best character in the show,
Mr. Ratburn.
Mr. Ratburn.
Mr. Ratburn is not what you think would be the teacher from hell, but he's not mean.
He's got that Finster quality where it's like, yeah, I don't know if I really want to be alone. Like, I don't want to spend
being
every day.
nice.
He is nice.
Mr. Ratburn,
nice.
Mr. Ratburn is super
to
cool.
Yeah.
Like, and do you remember how there are a couple episodes that Arthur paralleled, and there's actually lots of shows have, I think, taken episodes from Arthur, because there's an episode, much like how when Spinelli has to live with Miss Finster, there is an episode where Mr. Ratburn's roof caves in from a snowstorm, and he has to go stay with Arthur for a weekend, and Arthur discovers that not only is Mr. Ratburn like a super cool human, not human because he's a rat. Like, they're all anthropomorphic animals, but not only is Mr. Ratburn a super cool person, he like is he's very smart, but he also is super understanding. Like Mr. Ratburn is deeply creative. Outside of teaching, he coaches basketball. He runs puppet shows for little kids. He also is a magician, and there's an episode where he works in a joke shop for the summer. It's a really Mr. Ratburn is the teacher that he actually reminds me of my third grade teacher, Mr. Mewson. But the thing that I always found clever about their third grade classes, Mr. Ratburn is a third grade teacher. He teaches them like they're in easily grade 12. Like the work they have to write like 1,000 word. They have to write like 5,000 word essays like for homework.
Some of the homework they had, just a little homework tonight.
I have to talk about that episode.
Oh, that was a great episode. But
and you're the one who doesn't like musicals, but that episode's awesome.
Those songs slap.
Yeah.
Can I tell one episode that I remember?
Yeah, for sure.
That gave me like anxiety watching it as a kid.
Which one?
The spelling bee one?
No. It was the episode where DW she joined gymnastics class.
DW flips.
And then she is on the high beam.
Yes.
I don't know, for some reason she's trying to show off that she can be on the high beam with one foot, with one leg, and she's about to fall off and all that. I just remember as a kid, like I don't know if to this day I still like remember just feeling so scared for her. And but what's interesting is that the structure of that episode I remember where it shows that at the beginning. And then it'll show the title of the episode, but it'll flash back to how we got to that point.
All the episodes, they start with a cute little title card animation, and then they have like a prologue.
Yeah. And they talked about that scene in retrospect, and I remember thinking, oh, that's intense. And then when we got to the actual point at the end, where like I think her mom caught her right before she was about to fall.
Her best friend runs in at the very last minute with the teacher and and DW's mom,
and it just scared me. And also really the thing that I'll always remember, like I don't remember specific things about the show, but you want to know one thing I'll always remember because it was a bit of a repetitive thing about the show is the music, the banjo stuff, like the intense stuff, like the like it gets higher,
or that sentimental song like.
This show's musical properties are it feels like they raided a royalty-free music website and just used the same stock tracks.
Even the sound effects, like the dream scene, it's like
or when it goes from like fantasy
daydreams.
Now let's talk about the fantasies for a second, because the fantasies are deeply creative, but and some of them are like
they really remind me of Doug or something.
Quail Man.
Yeah, Quail Man. It's just like when Doug spaces out.
Like I said,
or in Sticking Around.
Sticking Around does it too.
There's definitely going to have to be like an episode where we dedicate to Arthur. But I'll talk about some noteworthy. My favorite episode. I'll ask you guys what your favorite episodes, or at least one that you remember.
Yeah.
My favorite episode is Francine Frensky Superstar. The plot of the episode is the class puts on a school play about Thomas Edison, and they petition Mr. Rapper to give her the role of Thomas Edison because in the past she's gotten like the shit end of the stick with roles in school plays.
Okay.
To the point where she gets like physically injured or humiliated, and they want her to have like a role that's dignified. So they petition Mr. Rapper to give her the role of Thomas Edison in the class play, and then she goes full tilt diva and acts like it's her show. She actually acts like she's the director, and ironically, Mr. Rapper doesn't put a stop to any of this. Like, that's how much of a pushover Mr. Rapper can be. But but the kids have to put a stop to it, and they sabotage the rehearsal show for the kindergartners in a really funny way. Like, they say their lines wrong on purpose. They botch sequences all over the place, and it's both a funny and heartfelt episode because after that sequence, you see Francine crying her eyes out in the makeup room, but then the kids all say, Francine, this is our show, and then for the parents' show, they do the show the right way, and it's a very earned moment.
Okay, wow, you just unhatched like a memory, and I'm just now remembering from like the back of my brain.
Yeah.
Right, like did the curtains close and like she fell and just her head is just showing on the bottom?
Yeah, no, that's when they're doing the can and the kindergartners are laughing their asses off, and then she's running, and then the curtain closes on her, and her head falls.
Her head is just the only thing that's showing, and then it cuts to her crying.
Yeah, it does.
Holy shit! It's funny that when you say that, you start to remember stuff.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
So
Inception.
Yeah. So, what are some episodes that's my favorite?
I have a couple. I had this one VHS tape that had two specific stories. One was Arthur Writes a Story.
Yeah.
And the other was Locked in the Library. And like I used to write a lot of stories when I was a kid, so I used to love this episode so much.
And you wear glasses.
I do. Yeah, I do. And yeah, I just love that episode because it kind of shows the creative process, and it's kind of a criticism of like. What's the word I'm thinking of? Like, audience testing?
Audience testing.
Because Arthur is too self-conscious to write a story. He has to ask various people, like, what do you like in a story? What do you like in a story? It's like, I think it should take place in outer space. Or it needs to have, like, I can't forget what it, but, like, everyone was, like, kind of pitching an idea that they like.
Yeah.
And Arthur was trying to like please everyone to the point where he pleased no one. I remember one.
It becomes a country song that is about elephants dancing on the moon.
Dancing schmelephants.
You know, like
dun, dun.
Here on planet Schmelephant. Dun, dun.
And I loved it when he read that to his grandma. It's like, what'd you think? Oh, well, it wasn't really my thing, but you wrote it, so I liked it. And then Arthur just crumples it up.
And
I love when he actually says it to the class, and Binky raises his hands like, did any of that actually happen?
Okay.
And then he
Binky.
And then he ended up telling the story of like how he got his dog, and everyone really liked that story because it had some
even
resonance.
Mr. Rapper did.
He gave him a really good mark, and he just has to write it by like next week, and then he's done.
And all of this started because DW said because DW for some reason does not like Pal. Like, DW is not a dog person.
I remember one time there's an episode where they have another dog. He's like, what a beautiful dog! So much better than Arthur's! I'm like, shut up.
She says that all the time.
She does. She's so nasty to Arthur. And then, like, the one where they're locked in the library, it's like Arthur and Francine have to work on a project together, but, like, Arthur said something mean to Francine, like, indirectly.
He called her a marshmallow.
He called her a marshmallow, and she got all angry at him.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Marshmallow, out of all insults.
Yeah. Of all the things.
She's self-conscious about her weight.
Okay,
yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then they have to do a project, and they sleep in the library, and then they get stuck in there. I don't know why the staff never, like, looked after, like, who's still in the place, but they get lost in there. And, then they're still at each other's throats throughout most of the episode. There's even some imagery that kind of reminds me of, like, a Sam Raimi movie, like Evil Dead, because the trees come to life.
In the 1 in a million chance you're listening, make a Arthur movie where that's all about the library.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Make an Arthur movie, just in general.
Make a kids movie.
Yeah.
I want to see, like...
But yeah, go on.
God. And, yeah... They chillax in, like, the lounge where the employees sit, and then they get found.
Yeah.
And then like Arthur and like Francine work each other's differences out. I just like that episode because it's.
And from that episode, they actually remain the best of friends for the most part. So some chronology there.
Yeah, there's a timeline. Yeah. So should we get into questions now?
I was gonna say some episodes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Cody.
You were
say something, and then I want to talk about 2 controversial episodes.
Okay. As you were talking, I was like, oh yeah, I'm remembering this episode. I remember this happening. So I do remember it more than I thought. I remember one episode that they were doing. I forget what the name of the person was that they were watching in the movies, but it was clearly a James Bond kind of...
James Hound, yeah.
Yeah, so they wanted to make their own movie.
Oh, yeah, I love that.
And they were doing, like, an action scene where he's on the bicycle, like, Arthur's on the bicycle, and he's supposed to go, this will do the trick, and he does, like, the smoke kind of bomb thing.
He sprays baby powder.
He sprays baby powder, but baby powder, as they were shooting, gets all over him instead. Yeah. And then he, like, wipes out on his bike. I just remember thinking, like, the whole movie just ended up being, like, a production, like, a failure, and I just remember, like, thinking that's so relevant just for filmmakers us, you know, like having bad shoots and all that.
Yeah.
There was another one I remember where DW was scared of fires and fire drills.
I related heavily to that because I was that kid. I didn't like the sound of the fire alarm. I wasn't scared that the school was going to burn down. I just didn't like fire drills.
There was that shot of, like, I forget their names, but the
Tibble twins.
The Tibble twins, yeah.
The original shit disturbers.
Yeah.
Oh god.
She was like having a nightmare.
The character breakdown.
They're having a nightmare and they're dressed like firemen and they're like fire drill, and they start walking into the fire as they're like ha 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 ha. Like, it just always remember being so like crazy.
Like I said, some of these fantasies or dream sequences in this show are absolutely like horrifying.
I remember one where Binky is like trying to eat a hamburger.
Oh
like,
god!
Mommy, he's gonna bite me.
That's in the Night Flight episode.
And then a giant hamburger comes out and grabs it. Just let go of my son. And when I was a kid, anytime I ate a burger, I thought I was gonna like cry in pain.
Aww.
So that kind of scarred me a bit.
Don't watch Sausage Party.
Oh, and it's not an episode, it's a scene where DW had like this inflatable shark.
Sharky.
Oh yeah, the
Sharky?
beach episode, right?
Yeah, they're watching like a movie, like it's like Jaws.
Yeah.
And like it cuts to their reactions, and they're like, "Oh, why'd you pick this movie?" It's like, I didn't. It was Sharky, and it just pans over. It's just a shark with like popcorn
in
and
the
like
movie theater.
drink, just watching it, like just sitting there.
Yeah. Oh man, we've all had toys like that.
But my favorite episode, or I would say like not, I don't even say it's a favorite. It's just such a memorable episode because of how raw and like kind of oh shit kind of it went, and now it's kind of a meme in the internet days now, but it's the one
about the angry one.
It's the one where Arthur makes a plane, like a model plane.
I was going to talk about in the controversial episode.
Okay, that's a controversial episode.
Yeah. And in the plane, he makes this model plane. He's all happy about it, proud about it. DW breaks it, and she's like saying a bunch of nonsense, like her rationale.
You built it wrong.
She was so spiteful.
Wrong, and then the anger is building into Arthur. The freaking clouds are turning dark behind him. I think there's even lightning.
There is a lightning storm.
They shows that meme of his fist. Like, it's not literally a meme. Just his fist getting up, and he goes, "I told you not to touch it!" And then it doesn't even show it. It doesn't even show the punch. It just shows the aftermath of her falling down, and then she just starts crying. There's like a pause, and she starts crying to her parents.
Yeah, she shows shock.
And I was just thinking, whoa, like, the show got really like raw and like, but it's so relevant today. Anyone that has siblings or just, you know, like you're not supposed to hate your siblings. It's just a very timeless like lesson about not getting along with your siblings. It can be annoying. Mistakes happen.
Can you imagine if the kids in the movie mid-90s saw that episode?
Oh my god.
Okay.
Oh, Lucas Hedges.
I mean, like, that's the least of their worries in that movie. Hitting your sibling.
Lucas Hedges is beating up the kid.
But so this.
But another funny thing that happened in that episode was when they're putting like ice on her brew. She goes, "Ow! What? That's cold." I thought that was really funny.
I mean, we're laughing at something horrible, but
that is a really rough episode to sit through.
I was gonna the two controversial episodes
was
Arthur's big hit because apparently like it was the reception apparently amongst the parents community was so controversial that they stopped airing it for a while. Another episode that
this one's
is almost
recent.
never aired. No, I'm not gonna. We'll get into that in the questions, but
okay.
Crushed. This is an episode that's very similar to the New Kid on the Block episode of The Simpsons where Arthur has a legitimate crush on an older girl who comes to babysit for him in DW, and she's a gamer girl. She's super cool. Like, I wish this girl was I actually had a babysitter very much like this girl, but I didn't have a crush on her because my hormones hadn't kicked in yet at the time. But the point is, Arthur has a crush on the babysitter, and then the babysitter one time is unavailable, and he takes it as like a personal heartbreak or betrayal. It's very similar to the Simpsons episode where that Laura girl babysits Bart.
I don't remember that very well.
It was, but I just remember watching it, and then I remember my friend Josh telling me it was so controversial that it airs very rarely, if ever at all.
Because like Arthur likes an older girl.
Yeah, no, the concept of like a kid having a crush, and I don't understand why that episode was so controversial.
That's a very common thing.
If it was an adult, maybe like they're trying to make a relationship out of it, but it's just a crush.
But no, it's controversial because she's a teenager and Arthur's 8. So
but the teenager's not going
but she's
for
not
Arthur.
reciprocating the feelings.
Yeah, she's not having a crush on Arthur who's younger than him. It's about a kid who has a crush on someone who's older than this. Yeah, every boy has gone through that.
Yeah,
whether it's your teacher or
that's
like
so bizarre that's a controversy.
No, that's not really that bad compared to the other one.
Going back to Arthur's big hit, that's the episode you talked about, Cody. Yeah. It was the internet has memed that to death.
Yeah,
it is the most parodied episode on YouTube, and the internet has a sick sense of humor.
I'm surprised they haven't like memed that episode that I was referencing earlier with the musical.
Having fun isn't hard.
Having
fun isn't hard when
you've got a library card. Or Jekyll, Jekyll, hide, Jekyll, hide, Jekyll, 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 hide, Jekyll, hide.
Just a little homework tonight.
Just a little homework tonight.
Yeah.
And then there's the one where like the dad is talking about making food.
You have to try my latest treat, a jellyfish inside a beet. Yuck! Why should we eat the same old meals? Wait till you taste my garlic eels. There are so many things to bake: a custard soup, a liver cake, a curry pie with something squash, about leftovers, goulash. Hey!
I don't remember any of this.
Evan's memory is superhuman.
Yeah, so basically it's that episode we didn't cover is Arthur's Almost Live Not Real Music Festival.
That was a great episode.
And you don't even like musicals. So.
No, that's like the one musical I actually really like.
Yeah, and
so TV.
Out of all of them.
Arthur's big hit, and also
I just remember that one so fondly. Yeah. So, shall we get into questions
about
it? We've been talking about it for like, I don't know, maybe half an hour.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Can we all just do it all at the same time? Arthur's epic gasp. That's the closest one we'll get. Yeah. Wait, it's like a...
It kind of reminds me of Hank Hill, like, whoa!
Or Kate's, like, that stock baby sound effect that you... Like, it gets high-pitched there.
Yeah.
It plays in TV shows, it plays in movies, and I always associate it with Kate.
Yeah.
Because they play it so much in that show.
Yeah, they do.
So, how did it... is it still a running show?
Not only is it still running today...
Which I did not know.
But it made headlines as recently as last year, because the episode Mr. Rapper and the Special Someone is an episode about Mr. Rapper gets married, and the kids... see this cranky like girl rat in the restaurant, and where they all hang out, and they think Mr. Rappern's marrying her, and they think Mr. Rappern's gonna have his life ruined if he marries this like really uptight person. So they create a plan to stop the wedding, but then they realize that no, that's Mr. Rappern's sister. Mr. Rappern is gay and getting married to a man or an aardvark. And
wait, he's married. He's not married to another rat. He's married to a completely different species.
Yeah, Mr. Rappern is gay. He's a gay rat.
Oh, of course, people are gonna make a big deal out of that.
It was controversial in the states where it's legal to marry your cousin.
Oh,
the red states, and it actually got banned in a couple of southern states. You Americans,
they're not the most open-minded.
The only reason it's even news is because of the like bigotry towards the LGBTQ community, and it's not. I watched the episode out of curiosity. It is not like controversial. Like he doesn't talk about what they're going to do on the honeymoon. The episode literally ends with them marrying a man. But yeah,
it's done tastefully.
It's done tastefully and subtle, and the whole point was it was just a misunderstanding. They thought she was gonna marry the more mean one, but it just happened to be like someone else.
And they're super happy like that he's gay. Like it doesn't even cross their minds what gay is. And I personally think they are the perfect age to learn about what it means to be gay, because I actually learned about what it meant to be gay on the schoolyard. And it wasn't in a bigoted sense. I heard a bunch of kids throwing around the words, haha, gay, you're gay. And I'm like, what does gay mean?
Yeah.
And my best friend at the time said, gay is when a boy likes another boy or a girl likes another girl. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I didn't learn about the whole prejudice and intolerance towards this lifestyle.
Until you're older.
Yeah.
Well, same with every... I'm the same way.
And, so... They cover it so well, and we're gonna have to save like the other topics that they cover for another day. So
I think this is the only show that's still running out of our entire list.
I think so.
Revival's not included. In fact, it says here that next to The Simpsons, it is the longest running animated series of all time.
Yeah.
Wow. I did not even know it was still running.
Yeah, it's in its 20. I guess it would be 24th season now.
Holy shit!
Yeah,
I did not know that.
It's on its 23rd season with 2 more on the way.
Yeah.
Is the animation still the same?
Probably
no.
not.
It got downgraded to Flash animation.
I hate Flash.
It's easier that way.
Because hand drawn is a dying art form. If it's not,
sad that it is. It's sad that it is a dying art.
So,
was it adapted into a movie? I don't even know this.
No,
even direct to video.
Nope.
Really?
There were a couple of Christmas. Okay, I will say this. There were a couple of hour-long episodes where they weren't movies, but they did get... There's the Christmas special, Arthur's Perfect Christmas, but no theatrical movies. You'd think that they would have done that by now, but...
It's so popular.
What would the stakes be? Like, you'd have to come up with something really big.
It'd be like the Rugrats movie. They just get lost in the woods.
Just
throw them in the woods.
But they've
throw them in space.
They've covered
let their animal instincts come forth.
Just like The Simpsons, they have covered so many storylines that it would be very difficult to come up with a movie if they were to do one. They haven't been turned into a movie, but I will say this though. One of the biggest, there have been tons of guest stars on the show that I don't have time to talk about, but the biggest guest star they had was the Backstreet Boys, and they dedicated an hour-long episode called Arthur, It's Only Rock and Roll, where the Backstreet Boys were the guest stars.
What?
And what's ironic is the Backstreet Boys are not a rock band, they're pop.
Yeah.
No, they're not. They're a boy band.
They're a boy pop band, but Francine starts a rock band, and they wind up playing on stage with the Backstreet Boys at the end. So
that's cool.
A good story for another time.
I still remember that Binky episode. You remember that the European band that comes in?
Binky, yeah.
Didn't he hang out with like a couple of like older, rough-looking
kinda, the Jimbo Jones
like a gang?
People. It was the tough customers, is what they're called. But
and they always played that down out. I remember the music so well in this show. Like it's funny.
Hey Lyle, you're a skater dude. Do you remember when the Skater Boys try to peer pressure Buster into being like this like douchey like Daredevil character who like they dare him to do stupid shit, and then
I don't remember that.
Oh, I figured you would.
Doesn't he love a superhero that's like a bunny?
Bionic Bunny.
Bionic Bunny.
And later in the show, Bionic Bunny gets sidelined for the Dark Bunny. There's an obvious like Superman Batman parallel.
I feel like we don't need to do an episode now because we've talked mostly about
the
entire show.
Does it hold up?
Absolutely, yes. Arthur holds up.
I think it holds up.
Yes.
I mean, I'm surprised it's still going.
You can watch it at any age and really appreciate it for what it is.
Yeah.
I'd say it's the closest show on this list that goes into like timeless territory.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure, it's timeless.
So, we covered 9 shows in this episode, and except we wanted to do a 10th one that we didn't get to, but ladies and gentlemen, we're going to bring Cody McDonald back at a later date, and we're going to cover our 10th episode, and I've got I just have one question. Who lives in a pineapple under the sea? Until next time, peace out.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.